Part 229. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2287. It's a new volume again. The Territory Lord transition volume is over. This volume, Become a Territory Lord. The three domain lords never expected that Jia Yan was not greedy at all, but chose certain minerals that were of no importance to the domain lord's creatures. Although many of those minerals are distributed throughout the master's influence, and some are more exotic and difficult to find, it is not difficult at all for the existence of the Territory Lord, and the existence of the three major Territory Lords. When needed, ask others. I'm afraid there will be countless people vying to be the first to be sent to them. As for letting the three of them give a preaching to Jia Yan, that is to say, some experience on the path of the Territory Lord, this is extremely simple. Even if there are some things, such as their path to becoming a Territory Lord, which will expose some of their weaknesses, it may not be very good if they tell others, but they don't have to say it. What Jia Yan wants is just some insights, which is an extremely empty concept. Yes, this is all I want. Of course, if you seniors feel that you have treated me badly, you can do these two things better, or help me find a few more senior Territory Lords to explain Territory Lords to me. Jia Yan is grateful for the journey. Jia Yan was very sincere to the three domain masters. His attitude showed that he was really single-minded and sprinting towards the path of Territory Lord. This sincerity made the three Territory Lords a little moved. This is the feeling that only strong men from the outside will have. Although there are many juniors in the North Star who are chasing the path of the Territory Lord, they are often distracted by external things. For example, when they are advancing towards the path of the Territory Lord, it is because of their family and their family. Because of race, or because of conflict of forces, or just friends or something, in the end, the path of cultivation became more and more difficult, and the time went by. In the end, even if the mind was still on the road to becoming a Territory Lord, the success was still in vain. Turning into a pale skeleton on the road to Domain Lord. But Jia Yan is different. His past in Biostar has been seen by these three before they came. His movements along the way made it easy for people to see his purpose, which was to be the Territory Lord, without any other emotions involved. The reason is also very simple. It's not that he has any nobler spirit than the native creatures in the North Superstar. It's just because he is an outsider. The purpose of coming to the North Superstar is to enter the Territory Lord level, such as the other creatures mentioned above have family, race, relatives, friends, and other messy relationships, but he has none of them. Jia Yan, since your determination to be a Territory Lord is so firm, of course we are willing to help you. Haha. Don't tell me, this is the first time in so many years that I feel that there is a junior who can really become a domain master. No matter how talented others are, I still feel that there is still a sense of uncertainty. Jia Yan, I finally understand why the giant tree values you so much. It turns out it's because you deserve his treatment. The three domain master creatures were all slightly pleased with Jia Yan's attitude and actions, and the stronger they were, the more they liked to see such a junior. Ever since, the two parties had already discussed the issue of interests and hit it off immediately. You three, don't worry about the ore. I wonder if you can teach me while preparing for the battle on the grassland? I have also reached an agreement with the two seniors on the giant tree. They are willing to communicate with me remotely. In this way, come, gather the knowledge and experience of the five Territory Lords, it will definitely give me a much deeper understanding of the path of a Territory Lord. Jia Yan quickly put forward his opinion. These three domain lords have promised Jushu and the others that they are willing to help fight on this grassland, so they will not leave for a while. This period is an opportunity to teach Jia Yan. Jia Yan doesn't care about Jia Yan's troops. After all, Jia Yan's troops are just one of the means for him to achieve his goal, not because he wants such a group of subordinates. Haha, Jia Yan, You are impatient, but we really can't go anywhere during this period, so it would be a good idea to take advantage of this period. The three of us haven't communicated about cultivation matters for a long time. We just took this opportunity to discuss it with those two guys from Jusui. Ha ha ha, you gave us this opportunity. That's right, Jia Yan, to say the least. I want to thank you for letting us re-understand the idea of cultivation. After so many successful promotions, I feel like I have forgotten about cultivation. After all, we are all territory lords. If we go one step further, we wouldn't dare think about it. The three territory lords were chatting about things, but they seemed to have a lot of insights. They were full of the unique feelings of territory lords. Even if Jia Yan didn't understand it, he slowly understood the uniqueness of the territory lord level. Thoughts? After all, territory lords are also strong, and they also have levels of strength and weakness. They cannot be exactly like ordinary creatures think, and everyone is superior. In the following days, the three major domain lords and the chariots of the picket troops did not leave Jia Yan's troops again. At the same time, Jia Yan also ordered all entertainment network functions to be shut down, because this requires the greatest confidentiality strategy. The arrival of the three territory lords initially caused a great shock to everyone in Jia Yan's army. After that, it didn't take long for them to get used to it. It's not that the soldiers are no longer afraid of the territory lord, but because there are legends that there are territory lords in those tanks, but they don't get off the chariot at all. Gradually, everyone gets used to it. Every day, their own commander Jia Yan ran towards those chariots, but no major information came out. As time went by, no one paid so much attention to it anymore. Did you hear that? The whole army has been asked to prepare for war. Oh? Is it because we are going to launch a formal counterattack? I don't know. Our Jia Yan troops haven't been deployed much in the past few days. The enemy has achieved good results in the battle. I always feel weird about counterattacking at this time. SHH, brother, have you forgotten the three adults in our Jia Yan unit? Also, why do you think Commander Jia Yan ordered us not to allow ordinary soldiers to communicate with the outside world? Is it because he is afraid that we will leak the news? What? If you say that, it's really true. Our Jia Yan troops know the internal reasons best. If there is anything on this grassland battlefield that changes the entire battle situation, it is definitely the three. There is a coming territory lord. Are they really going to join the war? Don't ask me. It's impossible to know if you ask me. It's just a possibility. Otherwise, why would the people above who have been controlling our Jia Yan troops in the past 2 days not let the information about the three domain masters here be spread? I know it, I know it. Master Jia Yan is not training us. He is just exchanging tactics with the three domain masters. He is definitely not the kind of person to give up on his subordinates. If Jia Yan, who was tirelessly asking questions in the chariot, heard some soldiers from Jia Yan's troops say this about him, I'm afraid even he would blush all the time. After all, he really wasn't exchanging tactics with the three domain masters. In Jia Yan's opinion, does this matter still require communication? 3 new territory lords have joined the battlefield. Even if the total number of territory lords is only 1 more than the enemy, it is enough to overturn this grassland battlefield. Because don't forget, even though our territory lord outnumbered the enemy twice before, the octopus creature senior of the giant tree still resisted the enemy. It is said that on the territory lord's battlefield, the enemy always fights 2 against 1. Neither of them could capture the 2 territory lord generals of the grassland troops, so the 2 territory lord generals might be the most powerful among the territory lords. Both of them can barely withstand the attacks of the 4 domain lords, but what about 3 more? What's more, based on Jia Yan's knowledge from the past 2 days, the combat power of these 3 people is probably not much weaker than that of the 2 domain masters of Jushu. In other words, the enemy army has already come and the four major ones are relatively weak. A small territory lord, but now facing 5 territory lords with the same strength as Jushu and others, how can he be invincible? So he didn't bother with tactics at all. It was a must-win war and he was just waiting for the adjustment time for the whole army to counterattack. Taking advantage of this time, he raced against time and tried his best to win over the 3 domain masters. Sometimes he didn't even sound like a junior, and his tone was very blunt, asking the 3 seniors to teach him certain issues. Such as now. Senior Chuan Shan, you said before that you had given up on the path of being a territory lord, but one day when you were digging in the mountains, you were so blessed that your soul was suddenly promoted, right? But I just heard you say that but before digging the mountain, I really wanted to become a territory lord. As I kept digging, I really became one. Why is it so inconsistent? Jia Yan looked coldly at the pangolin creature in front of him, whose eyes had begun to wander. It's been too long, I can't remember it, okay. Besides, this isn't the point, it doesn't make any difference. The pangolin hesitated and said hesitantly. Unexpectedly, Jia Yan suddenly slapped a mosquito foot on the table. Bang! It's not the point? Senior, this is the point, okay. What I want is the mental journey of you guys. You actually gave me such ambiguous information. It simply violates the spirit of the contract. By the way, Senior, you didn't even know what your mentality was when you were promoted. I have forgotten that this is impossible. A strong person has a very strong memory. Are you deliberately brewing smoke bombs for me? Do you want me to fail in my promotion? This is a serious violation of the deal we negotiated. Can you please stop doing this? Jia Yan actually became aggressive. Ha ha ha. On the side, another black bear-like strong man couldn't help laughing. Yes, this pangolin just needs to be dealt with. Of course, Jia Yan, I feel like he is not really here. I'm lying to you, it's just him, he must be a little bit senile, he forgot to take things out a few times before. Bear. You bastard, where do I have Alzheimer's disease? I'm only 3,500 years old, okay. It's still early before the end of the domain master creature. I just need to think about it, Jia Yan, don't worry, I think my brain needs some time to relax before I can think of things from the past, so don't worry. The pangolin creatures were so angry that they almost wanted to step forward and fight with another black bear-like territory lord creature. Fortunately, they managed to do so and still maintain the level of magnanimity that a domain lord creature should have. At least they did not make trouble in front of Jia Yan, otherwise their image would be lost. Okay, Senior Chuan Shan, think about it slowly. Next, I'll ask Senior Go Xiong. Jia Yan shook his head and turned to the black bear creature whose expression turned bitter for a moment. Senior Black Bear, I remember what you said last time. When you were fighting against the galaxy-level wasp group and wanted to seize their honey, the racial treasure, you got the opportunity to break through. After the breakthrough, you immediately forgive me. The wasp tribe, right? But I searched online and found out that the information I found is different from what you said. The wasp tribe was a tribe that was wiped out by a mysterious domain lord one day 1,000 years ago. And then even their treasures, racial honey, disappeared completely. Could it be that immediately after you left, another territory lord attacked that tribe? But this cannot be explained, because I was in another news. I found out that thousands of years ago, the Bear Clan gave birth to the first powerful Bear Clan territory lord in the history of the Land of Masters. Then this newly promoted territory lord returned to the clan with a batch of honey, making him the senior members of the race drank happily for 3 days and 3 nights. From this point of view, that's enough. The black bear looked ugly several times, and then said with a fierce look, Jia Yan, so what if I did it? 1,000 years have passed, And the territory lords who have been promoted after the Wasp clan are all if you don't dare to trouble me, do you want to stand up for them? No, I just want to find out. Senior, I can ask you, what kind of feelings did you have after your promotion? As a domain lord, you went to the Wasp tribe to kill them, and then took away their racial treasures. Jia Yan was frightened. Unfortunately, similar scenes had appeared several times in the past few days, and even he was used to it. Feelings. Fart feelings. The treasures of the Wasp clan are born to be the food of my bear clan. I have finally been promoted to territory lord, don't you want to have a taste of it? Okay, you are great. Jia Yan shrank his head, then opened his smart brain and recorded this information on it. He also added the content of the information he had obtained earlier, which was the font Senior Go Seong suddenly became enlightened after being promoted to territory lord, and he forgot all his grudges with a smile, marked as Senior Go Seong said this out of concern for his face. Facts have proved that the territory lord also cares about his face. That is to say, the major domain lords did not see many of Jia Yan's comments, otherwise they would have been angered to death by his poisonous tongue. Of course, because a lot of real information gradually surfaced, and extremely detailed information about the domain master began to gradually converge into some kind of signal in front of Jia Yan, from small to large. He saw the North Star, no, at least it was the territory lord world in the master's land. This world of domain masters has a worldview, detailed rules for dealing with people, their mentality, etc., which gave Jia Yan countless thoughts and ideas. On the other hand, Jia Yan did not receive much guidance or information from the major domain lords in terms of practicing skills. High-speed text hand typing chapter list of rebirth of the giant mosquito in the starry sky. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2288. There are two main reasons for not explaining the exercises. First, this matter is confidential, and Jia Yan is not their disciple or relative, so there is no need for them to explain such things to Jia Yan. Secondly, Jia Yan practices yin and yang dao, and he has studied countless information along the way, and finally reached this point. It is okay to ask the domain master for some guidance, but it is absolutely impossible to learn from it directly. It just so happens that others don't want to talk about it. Then don't mention it. Okay, Jia Yan, several days have passed, and we have said everything we should say to you. Now, it's time for you to say it. The three territory lords were all embarrassed in front of Jia Yan, but because of this, they were more friendly and easygoing towards Jia Yan. After all, there were two other territory lords around them, and they didn't have so much to show off. Possibility. At the same time, because of Jia Yan's unique perspective, they felt that Jia Yan was truly the kind of person who had the posture to be promoted to a territory lord. Although even they themselves couldn't tell what the best territory lord posture was. But Jia Yan really feels like a domain lord. So their attitude towards Jia Yan is getting better and better. But that doesn't mean you won't do what you originally said. After talking about the experiences of the territory lords, they even used some connections to search for the objects that Jia Yan wanted. Then, they went to help ask some territory lords if they were willing to teach Jia Yan. Although they have not received a reply yet, but it can be regarded as the most benevolent and righteous. So, it should be Jia Yan's turn. His yin and yang way. That's right, Jia Yan, the two giant trees are kind enough to you. They actually asked us to finish our work before letting you talk about yin and yang dao knowledge. We didn't know whether it would be a loss or not, so we did so much first. Now it's your turn to say it, you shouldn't have any objections, right? Several senior domain lords came to Jia Yan's side. Okay, it's my turn to talk, so I'll talk about it. Jia Yan saw that these domain lords were a little anxious, so he didn't dare to delay any longer. In fact, This matter can be regarded as a favor given to Senior Jusha by several major domain lords. Otherwise, who would have ever heard of a weak person communicating with a domain lord level being and dared to wait until the domain lord paid all the benefits before returning the benefits of? It's almost like courting death. What's more, these domain masters who are becoming more and more approachable really speak well, so Jia Yan doesn't have to hang up the communication and tell Jusha to. After all the benefits have been reaped, now it's his turn to pay. Okay, so seniors, I'll show my shame. Jia Yan calmly put away his record book, calmed down his emotions, and started talking about his yin and yang. I'm finally willing to say it. It's not in vain for us to waste so much time and energy, haha. In fact, we don't know how beneficial your so-called yin and yang dao is. We don't even know how long it will take for someone who has learned your yin and yang dao to be able to. If it's effective, then we have to switch to joint tactics. If the time cost and labor cost are too high, I'm afraid we won't be able to accept it. The pangolin smiled slightly. Seniors, you don't even dare to guarantee these, so why do you come to make a deal with me? Jia Yan was a little surprised. They came to make a deal with him without even accurately judging whether his yin-yang dao was a good deal. Are they not afraid of losing money? Haha, there's nothing to lose. I'm just wasting a certain amount of time with you. As for the grassland battlefield, did we forget to tell you that we are friends with the giant tree? We can help him. It only depends on the relationship between the two parties. Is also possible. Well. Jia Yan was stunned for a moment, then nodded helplessly. It sounds like these three senior territory lords really didn't pay much. Although it was a lot of work for Jia Yan, they didn't care at all. Of course, he didn't care much about the simplified version of yin-yang dao. Just simplifying to simplify, I still need to make it clear to a few seniors that my yin and yang dao is beyond their expectations. Senior, although you have already prepared for the worst, I still want to say that my yin and yang dao is far from what you imagined. Although I only designed it to be half a star, or more than half a star. A strong person needs to come to my side to feel it before it can be effective, but I think it is enough for the army. Oh, it's actually designed to reach a semi-star level. The yin and yang dao is fine. If you really master it, you might be able to find a true path of cultivation. The three domain masters were all slightly happy. If Jia Yan had designed it to reach the semi-star level, it meant that this yin-yang dao was not what they imagined. The venerable level was a sufficient level, which gave them a sense of hope. Surprise! After all, the army does not completely require strong men. If a half-star level can successfully practice yin and yang dao independently, and there is a joint force of yin and yang dao below half a star level, then the effect will be awesome. Such a this army, even if it is not as powerful as Jia Yan's personal command, is definitely 1 to 3. But of course, this was not enough to make them truly ecstatic. Because there are other issues that they are more concerned about. Jia Yan saw that some of them were not so excited, and finally released the real Wangjia. Haha, seniors, I'm afraid you still have doubts about my yin and yang dao. Just like what you just asked, my yin and yang dao, the speed and effectiveness of my cultivation, and whether I can form an army, etc. He looked at the three strong men with serious expressions and understood that these questions were what they really wanted to understand. Without clarifying these issues first, Jia Yan was very sure that even if he told the three of them about his yin and yang dao practice, they would not listen attentively, and they even felt that yin and yang dao might not be as good as they expected. In this way, it is better to explain clearly what they want to know first. Then, I am afraid that I will treat myself psychologically much better. Jia Yan knew that he had attracted the attention of the three of them, so he cleared his voice and spoke directly. I have not allowed the practitioners in Biostar to really study my yin and yang dao with all their strength. As for my apprentice, you also know that she is still very young, so she cannot be used as a reference, but my yin and yang Tao, but there are some practitioners on alien planets, I think we can learn from it. There are actually practitioners of this yin and yang Dao outside of Biostar? Several domain masters were shocked, but after thinking about it, it was normal. If there were no cultivators, they would not dare to let their troops practice casually, because it could only be regarded as an idea in Jia Yan's mind at best. There are outside practitioners in the cultivation techniques. No wonder Jia Yan is so confident. Presumably, his joint fighting methods were all group fighting techniques he found out from practitioners in the outside world. Now, they no longer had the slightest doubt as to why Jia Yan used such a terrifying yin-yang Dao, even paired with group fighting skills. After all, Jia Yan came from the outside world. He said that there are people who practice yin and yang Dao in the outside world, so he should be right. The yin and yang Dao joint fighting methods he came up with probably cost a lot of lives to fight. The plan is right. For a time, joy gradually appeared on the faces of the three domain masters, because they realized that the yin and yang Dao might be better than they imagined. Jia Yan went downstairs again. According to my past experience in teaching outer space creatures, the transformation speed of my version of yin and yang Dao is actually not too slow for practitioners. It only takes about a week or so for beings below the venerable level. From the original way of cultivating cosmic energy, it takes half a month to switch to yin-yang Dao, the venerable level, and the semi-star level above the venerable level. I think it should take a month. After that, I will practice my joint tactics. It will take another week to a month. What? How could it be so fast? When Jia Yan's words fell, the expressions of the three domain masters finally changed greatly, and the pangolin stood up from a sitting position in an instant. They were all shocked. Because I heard that those Jia Yan troops who absorb the sense of cultivation around Jia Yan will generally change their yin and yang Dao senses quickly, but they can't be said to be yin and yang Dao practitioners. In the sense of cultivation, I gradually understood some of the techniques of yin and yang, and then started to use them. They estimated that it would take a long time for some soldiers to change their entire cultivation direction to yin and yang Dao. Fortunately, this war has just begun. They have the time and energy to cultivate such an army. If such an army can be successfully cultivated within 2 years, it will be of certain benefit to local wars. But what they never expected was that when Jia Yan revealed the specific empirical data, the numbers immediately shocked all three of them. Is it too fast? Yin and Yang Dao is a unique cultivation technique, and it can even be said to be a general direction of cultivation. They have already felt this way, so if they want others to enter Yin and Yang Dao, it will definitely take a long time, because not only it is a matter of cultivating energy, and it requires those people to reverse the psychological senses of ordinary cosmic cultivation techniques. Generally speaking, such spiritual matters will definitely take time and will last for many years. But what Jia Yan said was not calculated in years, not even in months, but in days. This. Jia Yan, some words should not be said nonsense. If you change your words now, we can still forgive you. Otherwise, you are lying about the military situation. Pangolin was slightly agitated, but he still suppressed it and was intimidated by Jia Yan's harsh words. He is afraid of young people like Jia Yan, who likes to brag. If such exaggerated data are said now and cannot be achieved when it is actually verified, then not only Jia Yan, but also he will be blamed in some quarters. Oh, it seems that I am not that strict and I went too far. Jia Yan was startled, then nodded, with a hint of self-blame. When the three domain masters saw his appearance, they thought that Jia Yan was about to admit that he was bragging. Unexpectedly, Jia Yan's subsequent change of words made the three domain masters' hearts beat faster again. To be more precise, these data should be obtained by me in the outer starry sky. On the North Star, the general talents of living creatures are stronger than those in the outside world. If you master them well, the overall data should be improved. 3 seniors, I say this, it is better to be more rigorous. But it is already fast, and the improvement should not be too much. The 3 territory lords originally wanted to hear Jia Yan apologize and say that he was bragging, but what they heard was that Jia Yan was bragging again. For a moment, they didn't know what to say. Jia Yan, okay, if you insist on this, let's listen to what your yin and yang dao is. Tell us the truth and let us see why you dare to say such a fast transformation speed. Let me tell you first, these data will be spread to the outside world before we make a judgment. If you are found to be bragging, at least the 3 of us will know about it. If it spreads to the outside world, you may be unlucky to know. Faced with the vocabulary of pangolin creatures, Jia Yan shrugged indifferently. He didn't think there would be any mistakes in the data he told, because he felt that the creatures in the North Star were indeed more talented. As for the improvement speed of the creatures outside, he had obtained several professors. The place of yin and yang dao serves as a precedent, and it must be correct. The creatures in the central star of the Milky Way, which should have better talents, will not have insufficient talents compared to the creatures in the outside world. However, the 3 domain owners still refused to believe it, so Jia Yan could only use the facts to make them understand. Okay, I said. Jia Yan immediately spoke up. The principle of yin-yang dao is actually not complicated, and after listening to it for less than half a day, with the cultivation strength and knowledge of the 3 domain masters who are stronger than Jia Yan, I can understand why Jia Yan dares to say the transformation speed of yin-yang dao so fast. The reason is very simple. Although the cultivation concept of yin-yang dao is subversive, it itself is also very miraculous. It is actually attached to the cultivation concept of the universe. Even if you look closely, the powerful people who designed this path have cleverly left behind many backdoors that allow the powerful people in the universe to quickly switch to the yin and yang dao, as well as some tips that are easier to understand. So it is natural that creatures on the normal path of cultivation can quickly transform. Wonderful. So wonderful. Jia Yan, is this really a cultivation technique that you have developed on your own? It is so clever. Although there are many places that seem to be incomplete, the general framework is simply ingenious and whimsical. And it makes it impossible for people to refute, which is extremely reasonable. After several domain lords finally spent a day listening to Jia Yan's explanation of the simplified version of yin and yang dao and the cultivation techniques, they suddenly seemed to have heard some great man talk about another type of cultivation that was different from the universe. The path of the system, everyone couldn't help but exclaimed. High-speed text hand-typing chapter list of rebirth of the giant mosquito in the starry sky. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2289. The way they looked at Jia Yan, they had changed from thinking that he was a good commander and a talented young man who had developed a unique combat teaming technique to looking at him as a genius. You know, it is a supreme honor to be regarded as a genius among the North Stars with many talents. Haha, seniors, this is too flattering to me, Jia Yan. Jia Yan smiled slightly. In fact, he really didn't feel that he was a great genius. Because he had been in boxing for a long time and had read many legends and understood a lot of folk rumors. He knew that he was not as good as him. On to the real geniuses. No, Jia Yan, I'm afraid you don't understand the prospects of your yin and yang dao. The pangolin creature shook its head helplessly. Jia Yan, do you know how we evaluate your yin-yang dao? It's not that your yin-yang dao cultivation path is so good, nor is it so wonderful that it shocks us, the territory lords, because at best, your yin and yang dao has only been perfected to a semi-star level, and from what we can see, there are indeed many areas that need to be improved and strengthened. But he is stronger in another area. Another place? May I ask Senior what this means? Jia Yan, who was a little curious after what the pangolin said, couldn't help but ask. Haha, of course I'm talking about your yin-yang dao's joint fighting method, which means group fighting potential. Do you know why I say that? Senior, please stop showing off. I'm really not familiar with Ubiostar. Jia Yan felt dumbfounded. It was the first time he knew that among the territory lords, there were people who liked to show off. Of course, this is because several territory lords regard Jia Yan as one of their own, or even as a future territory lord preparer in a sense, and their attitudes are much more correct. Otherwise, how could ordinary creatures be treated so equally by them? Seeing that Jia Yan was agitated by his own words, the pangolin stopped showing off and shook his head to explain why. In fact, there seem to be many group combat skills, but each one is a treasure among all forces. Jia Yan, you may not know how important the group combat skills are within our North Star, even in a domain. Lord, it is not as good as a medium group combat skill, because the forces within the North Star, generally speaking, the quality of soldiers is high. Although the weight of a domain lord is sufficient, compared with a medium group combat skill, it may be better than no, because even the territory lord may be torn into pieces when surrounded by the army. Oh, that's it? But that's not the reason why the seniors praise me. Jia Yan nodded, and through his words and the feedback from all around him after he used the yin and yang dao joint tactics in the past and trained a large number of Jia Yan's troops, he felt the possible prospects of the joint tactics within the North Star. Think about it, each of the joint tactics is a skill that improves the overall strength of the army. If the military domain owners of both sides are similar and the strength of the armies is the same, but the other side has the joint tactics, then the combat strength of both sides will be turned upside down in an instant, and its impact on the war will be profound. It's no wonder that after he released Yin Yang Dao, these three domain lords came to the grassland war zone in person, and even joined the battle in this war zone in exchange for his simplified version of Yin Yang Dao. After figuring this out, Jia Yan didn't want to say anything, but the Black Bear Territory Lord on the other side said something else. These words gave Jia Yan an extraordinary understanding of the reason why he was so valued. What Chuan Shan said is right, but you have given us more surprises. Jia Yan, when we first came here, we just thought that your joint strategy could only arm an army of about 1,000 people at best. Just like the Jia Yan troops you are currently commanding, they only have this number because you personally command them and have your own energy spilled over for your subordinates to understand. As for the joint tactics of thousands of troops, although it can be regarded as a medium joint tactics, it is very reluctant. To be honest, it cannot compare with the value and significance of a domain lord. The reason why we really come is because you have trained the speed of Jia Yan's troops. With this speed, even if they only have the skills to reach the mid-range joint tactics, it is an additional powerful method for our masters. But you surprised us again. The black bear creature sighed slightly and nodded slightly, seemingly satisfied. Jia Yan, please be honest. Your joint tactics were probably more than just 1,000-man army when you were on the alien planet, right? Judging from your command proficiency, and the fact that this army has a more complete with a sense of reserve, I guess, we can at least build a force of 5,000 people, right? The black bear creature said this deliberately, and at the same time it was a kind of temptation. The three domain lord creatures are all full of expectations. They had seen before that Jia Yan's troops had a sense of jointness, commanding thousands of people like an arm, and even felt that there was still huge potential that had not been used, so they quickly analyzed that this yin and yang dao's joint tactics, Jia Yan, I'm afraid it has been perfected in the outside world for a long time, and it has commanded an army of more than 5,000 people. You must know that the joint fighting method of 5,000 people is not just as simple as 5,000 people using the joint fighting method of yin and yang dao standing together. If a joint battle method of 1,000 people gathered in one place is a barely mid-level joint battle method, then 2,000 people is a standard mid-level joint battle method, and 5,000 people, it directly steps into the threshold of high-level joint battle method. Jiayan, tell me directly. Have you ever created a joint force of 5,000 people? So far, we, the masters of power, do not have a high-level joint warfare method. If you really are yin and yang Dao, this level of joint warfare, needless to say, tomorrow, if you want to leave the front line, the three of us will personally escort you away. In the future, you will be the guest of the entire master's force, and a distinguished guest. You are not with Sila. Do you have a good personal relationship with the little princess? If you are interested in a woman like her, the master family will not consider it and betroth her to you. Don't, forget it princess, Jiayan, can't bear it. After listening to the first half, Jiayan felt that his face was glowing, and there was a trace of pride growing, but after listening to the second half, saying that he was actually misunderstood to like Sila, that fart lowly. It's not good or bad. Several seniors, I probably know how important the joint strategy is in your North Star. As for my yin and yang Dao joint strategy, to be honest, it was not developed in an environment like Biostar. I can't guarantee what level it should be. But if you want to ask, have I ever used this joint strategy to command large armies before, I can give an affirmative answer, that is, yes. And, more than 5,000 people. Jiayan hesitated for a while and decided to tell the truth. However, he did not say it directly. In the past, when he was in the Orion Arm, the number of troops he commanded was not only more than 5,000, but even far more than 10,000. He couldn't count the number himself, but that kind of command was all loose and loose. It was almost a joint effort of small units and gradually built up into a joint operation of large units. The so-called large group joint tactics of Baiyuxing would definitely be affected. There is a difference. So he didn't brag directly. He said it was more than 5,000. He still considered that the yin and yang Dao he gave was not very perfect. In this way, he could almost command 5 to 10,000 people to join forces and fight together. It should not be too different. This was still him. If it were another commander, it would have taken a lot of effort for 2,000 people to do it, so he didn't think it would be anything shocking when he said it. Have you really had experience? And more than 5,000. I found a treasure. Haha, I really found a treasure. Jiayan, I'm afraid you don't know how rare such a joint strategy is for the forces in the North Star. If any domain master gets this cooperation, you can go out on your own with all your tactics, and it won't be a problem to establish a small force. But you have agreed that if you cooperate with us, don't think about leaving, otherwise the three of us will not let you go. Haha, seniors, Jiayan, am not that kind of person. Besides, didn't you say that we need a territory lord? I am a mid-level peak person in the galaxy. Even if I go to the outside world with this joint strategy, I am afraid that I will still be ineffective and end up in decline. To the extent that I am held hostage by other forces or domain lords, I am not stupid. Jiayan was amused by the exaggerated reactions of several people. But he obviously underestimated the excitement he had for these guys by telling them about Yin and Yang Dao's joint group combat skills. The pangolin stood up involuntarily. Jiayan, I'm afraid you still think that you can't use the troops in the North Star to command the outside group. You really don't have to worry about this. The creatures in the North Star are almost uniform in size, and their formations are easier to arrange. Regardless of ground battles and sky battles are not as complicated as outer space, so if you have experience, it will be absolutely simple to transfer to the North Superstar. Jiayan, if we didn't have an agreement with Jushu and the others, I would have done it now. I want to escort you back to the hinterland, but it's too dangerous here. The tactics that are so important to the land I control cannot go wrong. The black bear creature was also aroused by these words. That's right. Why don't we send intelligence to the higher UPS and make arrangements for the affairs here? If necessary, even if we abandon the entire grassland war zone, we must protect Jia Yan and return to the hinterland. Don't be so exaggerated, right? Jia Yan was dumbfounded. The transaction is going well, what tricks are these guys playing? It actually turned into protecting me. If he had known that the joint tactics of Yin and Yang Dao were so effective, he might have recommended himself to the little princess. After all, for Jia Yan, this joint tactics is a simplified version that does not involve the core, and the status is high, and the master the power is bound to bring many benefits, and when they are promoted to territory lord, they will not be able to control themselves. Exaggeration? Jia Yan, yours is definitely an advanced joint warfare technique, and there is even the possibility of perfecting it. Such a joint warfare technique, let alone us, even the current masters in the master family have it. Maybe I'll come to greet you in person. Tell me, we just did this, is it an exaggeration? Yes, brother Chuan Shan, if we don't escort Jia Yan away after knowing that he has such skills, will the superiors punish us after this incident? This is delaying the fight. Why don't we take Jia Yan away now? The reaction of the pangolin and black bear made Jia Yan unbearable. It was fine before, saying that they wanted to help the grassland war zone, but then they made some nonsense about Yin and Yang Dao's joint warfare, and it turned into that they wanted to abandon the grassland war zone. This is nothing. Seniors, this is not possible. We promised the two seniors Jushu. Besides, I have also contributed a lot on this battlefield. It would be a great regret for me to give up on the battlefield. Please let us complete it. Let's talk about the small victory on the grassland battlefield later, okay? He felt that he had inherited the love of the two giant tree octopus domain lords. If he left just like that, it would really be a bit of a villain. Jia Yan was not capable of such a person. What's more, with the protection of 5 domain lords, and the powerful combat power of Jia Yan's troops at his side, Jia Yan doesn't think there will be any problem with his own safety. If there was a problem, he would be the first to run. This. Brother Chuan Shan, let's do this. Since Jia Yan himself said so, we will finish this battle as quickly as possible. After the battle, we will lead him away directly. We can't let such a little baby be in danger. Okay. The three domain masters looked at each other and finally reluctantly agreed with Jia Yan's words. The next day, the members of Jia Yan's troops discovered one by one that there seemed to be a slight difference among the powerful domain lords in the picket chariot. The three strong men were originally hidden in the chariot, but for some unknown reason on this day, after a while, a territory lord would fly out of the chariot without talking to others, just fly out of the chariot. And then flew in circles around the entire Jia Yan unit, as if on guard duty. After going around and around like this very vigilantly for 6 or 7 hours, the territory lord will return to the chariot, and then another territory lord will appear and continue to circle around. Walking around like this, the soldiers of Jia Yan's army, who had been nervous and watching them with admiration, felt that their eyes were dazzled one by one, and at the same time, every soldier felt strange in his heart. Why have these territory lords become so vigilant? Aren't they so arrogant that even when they came to Jia Yan's army, they went on a rampage? In addition, why did their commander Jia Yan not show up after entering the tank this time? Could it be? What really happened? Commander Jia Yan was harmed by 3 domain masters. For a time, rumors about whether the 3 domain lords were unfavorable to Commander Jia Yan and whether they had any conspiracy spread rapidly throughout Jia Yan's troops, causing undercurrents in the entire army. Even those who had been every one of the old soldiers who followed Jia Yan was filled with indignation and wanted to do something. After all, they have been following Jia Yan for a long time. They can be said to be direct descendants. If anything happens to Jia Yan, they will probably be affected, so it is better to do something and see how the superiors react. High-speed text hand typing chapter list of rebirth of the giant mosquito in the starry sky. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2290. Fortunately, after another day, Jia Yan, who looked bitter but felt helpless, flew out of the picketed tank safe and sound. Only in this way did these veterans from the land of ice and snow go from being ready to agitate to calming down. All right, there's a new mission coming from above. Everyone, be prepared. Also, you guys have to fight this battle well. After the battle is over, I will find a group of people to go to other places with me. The soldiers of Jia Yan's army, the extremely concerned leader Jia Yan, appeared out of nowhere. The soldiers were startled, thinking that something had happened to Jia Yan because of the three domain masters, but it turned out that he was fine. What the members of Jia Yan's army did not expect was that the friendly domain lords appeared together with Jia Yan. They did not even have the slightest idea of competing for power with Jia Yan, what's more. Or, when Jia Yan was commanding the troops, they watched silently from the side. They felt like they were students coming to study. Good command. I don't know if I don't tell you. After knowing that he once had command experience of such a large force, I always feel that the details of his command are worth learning. It's not bad. The three domain lords stood leaning against the chariot, and what they said would make Jia Yan himself feel dumbfounded. What is his commanding ability? When he was on the alien planet, the sergeants below were helping him with these small details. Jia Yan only slowly discovered many of the details he added after arriving at Biostar. Okay, three seniors, do you have anything you want to say to me? If not, I will let them leave. No, just give the order yourself. Just pretend we don't exist. Jia Yan was quite smart. After arranging everything for the army, he didn't forget to ask several domain owners. After all, this was a way to show respect and it didn't cost money. Of course Jia Yan could use it. Unsurprisingly, after receiving no response, Jia Yan returned to the army himself. Set off. Following the order, all the soldiers of Jia Yan's army began the new march in a mighty manner. Of course, the soldiers of Jia Yan's unit were a little weird from the beginning during this operation. The weirdest thing is that those three territory lords, who were so powerful, did not choose to leave them after they started marching. Instead, they entered the chariot and walked along the way as if they were guarding against some formidable enemy. Guarding against some invisible enemy. It seemed as if they were not domain lords at all, but some ordinary Jia Yan guards. This is certainly surprising to the members of Jia Yan's army. After all, the strength of Jia Yan's troops is pretty good, but they still have some self-awareness. If nothing else is mentioned, all they need is a territory lord to rush into their Jia Yan troops, and they feel that they may not be able to resist it. But today, it seems that there are three territory lords surrounding Jia Yan's troops, protecting the members of Jia Yan's troops. This always feels weird. But it's good to have someone to protect him, no matter what his weirdness. Maybe during these days of living together, their chief Jia Yan could win the favor of some domain lord creature, and then be adopted as an adopted son. It is natural for an adopted father to help his adopted son. I am afraid that neither Jia Yan nor the three territory lords have thought that these soldiers under their command could have such big ideas, and that this speculation and rumor has actually spread, causing Jia Yan's glorious image to be slightly damaged. Fortunately, rumors are just rumors, and for Jia Yan, there is no need to filter them too much. And the time for rumors to spread will not be too long. In this battle, they were basically keeping information from the ordinary soldiers in private, but some of the non-commissioned officers of Jia Yan's unit at the middle and high levels had already obtained information about this battle from Jia Yan's mouth. These non-commissioned officers all had ugly faces. You also know, right? Our combat mission this time. I know, it's simply too scary. It's such a big combat mission, and it seems that it would be too dangerous for our Jiayan troops to become the center of the battlefield. It's not necessarily dangerous. Didn't you see those 3 people here? If there are 3 people to help us, our safety will be guaranteed to a certain extent. Just be afraid, those 3 people will only protect our Master Jia, but not our Lord Jia, ordinary sergeants like us. This is also possible. I think we adults must have something that they need. Otherwise, it would be a bit abnormal to be so kind to us adults. Forget it, let's take it one step at a time. Mr. Jiayan is also very good to us. If those 3 people are unwilling to protect us, if there is any danger, we will go to Mr. Jia. They will not die without saving us, right? A group of senior non-commissioned officers expressed great concern about the current situation and also thought of countermeasures. Far away inside Jiayan's troops, Jiayan returned to his chariot at this time, silently recalling the gains of the past few days. He didn't care about the war anymore. Qian. Because of the joining of 3 senior territory lords, the war deliberately provoked by the main force of the grassland army will be over soon. Focusing on 4 of the 5 domains, our advantage is huge. Not to mention, according to what the 3 seniors said, the average strength of the 4 enemies is much weaker than these 5. If it were not possible to turn the grassland battlefield into a big victory now, the 5 of them would really go all out. 3 of the 4 enemy domain lords will stay in this grassland forever, that is, they will die in the battle that will take place later. However, they will not do this. At most, they will be able to kill 2 enemy territory lords. This depends on the current battlefield situation. If nothing can be done, the worst result will be to kill only 1 territory lord. Killing is not necessarily a good thing, and not killing will not achieve a great victory. In short, the 5 domain masters do not consider the possibility of losing the battle at the moment, but only think about the level of victory. Therefore, Jiayan, who is destined to be just a supporting role, will not even think about this battle. With so much time, it is better to think carefully about the many knowledge and experiences that the 5 domain masters have instilled in themselves in the past few days. These are extremely precious things. They were obtained by me and the simplified version of Yin and Yang Dao, as well as the Yin and Yang Dao's joint tactics. They are extremely precious. Several seniors have similar characteristics, but this characteristic is incompatible with mine, so their experience is destined to not be incredibly helpful to me. Jiayan sighed at what he had gained over the past few days. Regarding that characteristic, he was helpless, because the characteristic of these 5 domain lords was that they all seemed to have been promoted to the domain lord level when they were not young. In other words, at least in terms of the enterprising mentality and the unique sharpness of young talents, they did not have it when they were promoted. For Jiayan, there is not much reference significance in this regard. However, there are still many things worthy of his reference in other aspects. For example, when the 5 territory lords were promoted, each had a very unique experience. 2 of them were practicing normally and worked hard to become territory lords. The other 3 were all of them, in a state where they were almost losing hope, inexplicably became domain masters. That is to say, sometimes the territory lord comes out of nowhere. The more you pursue it, the more it comes, but it doesn't come as expected. If you don't deliberately pursue it, the chance of coming is higher. Of course, it seems that these 3 they all have unique triggering mechanisms. For example, Senior Bear made a breakthrough during a battle with the Wasp tribe, while Senior Pangolin made a breakthrough by digging in the mountains. Jiayan was thinking about whether there were any similarities in the paths of these powerful men to become domain masters, or whether there was any inspiration for him. However, this kind of thing is not that simple. Even if Jiayan finds some specious inspiration, it is actually unlikely to be something that can be used by all middle-level peak powerhouses in the galaxy to lead to the domain master. What he was doing was just summarizing. Maybe the entire summarizing process was the guideline for his promotion to Territory Lord, or maybe during the summarizing process, some inspiration struck him, which would be the mechanism for him to be promoted to Territory Lord. The only thing that is certain is that more such information and experience is a good thing anyway, so what Jia Yan is doing will definitely not be in vain. It can be seen that after this battle, I will definitely not be able to survive in this grassland war zone. I will follow the 3 senior domain lords to leave. But the time I spent in this grassland war zone and what I experienced with the little princess, all the fighting process will not be in vain, because these processes have all helped me gain fame and reputation. If it were in the past situation, an outsider like me who inexplicably came to the power of the North Star Master would want me. With knowledge and experience, there must be a high probability of becoming stronger, but it is different now. I have a certain reputation among the masters, and I have met several domain masters as my backing. This has also demonstrated my ability. Having performed on this stage, the masters must have understood that it is more beneficial to get some information from me safely than to turn against me or use violence to rob me of my knowledge, even if it requires a certain amount of effort. They should also choose to do that, as long as I control the speed and don't go too far. Jia Yan sorted out these things and suddenly had a little confidence in what he would do next, being taken over by the 3 domain masters outside the grassland war zone. As the 3 of them said before, as long as they want to, it is possible to even ask that little brat princess to marry him. Of course, Jia Yan didn't think about it at all. She was that kind of brat. She looked like she was a little younger than herself, but she was still a toddler. Besides, Jia Yan already had a family, so he would only look for her if he had a brain. Jia Yan didn't really want the princess on the North Star, he just compared the meaning of the sentence. That is to say, after he came up with that first-class joint fighting method, his status was high enough to be accepted by the people in the master's family. You know, that is the master family, including the 5 current territory lords, as well as many territory lords within the land of the master, who are the nominal leaders. Of course, the master's family is strong, but it does not mean that it can conquer all the domain lords in the entire master's territory. It is not so much that the master's territory is controlled by them. It is better to say that this area is actually controlled by them. They just obey the management of the master's family. They are more like managers of a family. It's much simpler to understand it this way, right? But it is not that simple for the master family to be able to manage such a huge area. To manage the incredibly large number of territory lords and even more vast creatures like gravel, you need unimaginable power, and the master family is such a force. In the entire family, there is actually one individual who can absolutely subdue all existence. The master's family uses him as the central force, controlling the entire master's power from all aspects. This individual is a territory lord with unrivaled strength. Yes, a territory lord, but not an ordinary territory lord. It is said that this domain lord is the founder of the master family. The ruler of this area was another big force. After being captured by the founder of the master family, he founded the master family, has ruled this area for a total of 3,000 years, and is even older than the countless domain lords. According to rumors, the strength of this territory lord should be in the middle level of territory lord. There are even rumors that he is the peak existence in the middle level of territory lord. But how strong it is, no one can tell because it has been too long and I have not seen it. This one took action. A mid-level territory lord has already subdued the territory lords in the entire master's influence, and even shocked the 4 directions. It is said that almost every major force in the surroundings will have such a territory lord. The middle-level ones are in charge, otherwise, several top-level domain lords in the first level are required to unite, so as to suppress a small force. Of course, The territory controlled by this so-called small force is also incredibly large. Jia Yan thought about the power of the master and immediately turned his thoughts back to himself. Now that I have presented the joint battle method and the simplified version of Yin Yang Dao, the masters have become more important to me, so they will not refuse if I ask for something. They said that even the princess is willing to betroth to me. Based on such standards, if I put forward almost equal conditions, they will be willing to accept it. He thought about whether he should take advantage of this opportunity to directly control the territory of the master's influence, give himself a boost, push himself, and directly be promoted to the domain master. After all, for Jia Yan, going to other forces may not necessarily make him a domain master. But in the territory of the master's influence, with such merit, he will have bargaining capital, which will be a huge advantage. High-speed text hand typing chapter list of rebirth of the giant mosquito in the starry sky. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2291. He only needs to master certain levels of the Yin-Yang Dao so that they will continue to rely on him in the future. Maybe such a contribution alone will be enough to make the master's territory become a domain. Lord. Jia Yan immediately praised his wit. Yes, you can definitely do this. Instead of fighting in other northern superstar lands, it is better to rely on the power of the masters who are attacked from both sides. They happen to need to increase their combat power, and they cannot lose all at once. So it's such a big territory. After a war of annihilation, it might take decades or even hundreds of years. This is almost the age of my entire life now. I don't believe it. I can take advantage of this period to take their food and eat their food. Still can't be promoted to domain lord. Jia Yan's plan is quite powerful. The master's power is indeed surrounded by so many enemy forces now. For him, he should not be able to choose to develop in this kind of power. But things have to look at both sides. Isn't it possible for him to gain a higher status in a place like this, highlight his own value, and then get more benefits from the higher UPS in the power? As for the danger in the future, please, if he is promoted to territory lord, he will not stay here. Boom. Just when Jia Yan was calculating and summarizing many matters, he always felt that after today, he should be able to safely embark on the road to the territory lord. A burst of earth-shaking explosions came from the front of the army. Huh? Is it the sound of fighting, or is it such a terrifying energy explosion? Could it be that there are existences at the domain lord level fighting? Jia Yan's expression was slightly startled, and then he calmed down the series of random thoughts he just had in his heart, and let his thoughts return to reality. The future is the future, the present is now, and he is on the battlefield now. Although the entire incident and progress have been planned by our side, nothing in war will always go as planned, otherwise the war will not go as planned. No need to fight, it all depends on who has the best plan. Therefore, he always attaches great importance to the ever-changing battlefield. No matter how much he thinks that our combat power will never fail, he will not be careless. Sir Jia Yan, there is a battle ahead. Our two senior territory lords have gone forward to observe the battle. They have ordered that if we are integrated, we will also go to join the battle. Oh? You want us to get ready? That's fine. Send the order. Jia Yan's troops will get ready with all their strength. Yes. Jia Yan gave the order directly without much hesitation. The adjutant went down to make arrangements, while Jia Yan adjusted his posture slightly, from lying on his stomach to standing up. If nothing else goes wrong, today's command battle will be my last command battle in this grassland. Since I want to impress others, I have to fight this last battle well. Nice fight. Therefore, he is ready to command with all his strength. In some Yin and Yang Dao, the battle formations and techniques that require thousands of people to join forces can be used, and then make the battle more beautiful, so that the people in the territory of the master's influence can be used. Other senior leaders all recognize and affirm that their commanding ability is also their future capital. Lord Jia Yan, the two Lord Territory Lords in front have already fought with the enemy. As expected, they are the main force of the enemy army. They are encountering the main force of our army in the front and fighting a battle. They have sent information. We, Jia Yan, the troops should go over as soon as possible for reinforcements and take control of a major battlefield so that the enemy cannot make a detour to sneak attack on the main force. Okay, let's go over and guard the flanks. After listening to the information coming from his adjutant, Jia Yan quickly opened the battle screen of Zhinao, then clicked on a certain area and ordered Jia Yan's troops to move out. The adjutant looked at Jia Yan's order from outside the chariot and did not question it at all. In this series of battles, the adjutant had learned not to refute any of Jia Yan's orders. And doubt, because it will usually be confirmed in the future that Jia Yan is right. Even though he is a professional from Zhangzheng Academy, in actual combat, he cannot match Jia Yan's military vision. In the sky, Jia Yan's troops, which had been in a defensive marching formation, instantly received Jia Yan's order. A second later, like an arm-like individual, they suddenly began to change. Very good. Since they are so obedient, shouldn't I also show the real power of Yin and Yang Dao's combined tactics? Jia Yan was thinking about whether to use his Yin-Yang Dao guidance to join forces. You must know that in the later stages, his Yin-Yang Dao joint warfare will be able to order these powerful Yin-Yang Dao warriors to join forces and be guided by him alone. Like an extension of one's own body, thousands of people fight together. But after thinking about it, Jia Yan shook his head. I don't think it's necessary yet. It's not that he still wants to save a hand. The problem is that Jia Yan's troops are not at that level. If they barely operated, I am afraid that not only his subordinates will suffer brainwave damage, but he himself will also suffer from mental difficulties. Big damage is not worth the loss. So he gave up the idea. Master Jia Yan, we have arrived not far from the battlefield. The flanks are over there. No enemy troops have passed here yet. Should we join the battle group, or should we directly station here and wait for the enemy's arrival? Don't rush into the main battlefield. If our numbers enter the main battlefield, it won't have much effect. What's more, there are domain lords there. It's not cost-effective for us. We can just stay here. What do the enemy think? If we want to bypass this place and attack our army's flanks, we will hold it. If there are any reinforcements from the enemy who want to pass through, we can just defend them. Yes. The adjutant worked tirelessly to convey Jia Yan's orders. Although the training level of Jia Yan's troops is not yet high enough for Jia Yan to control the whole situation with the power of brainwaves, because of his good military quality, there is not much delay in taking action. Every order is issued. There is extremely fast feedback and action. Suddenly, this seemingly small force flew to a battle area where bursts of explosions erupted and brainwave power exploded. They flew straight towards the flank. At the same time, all the soldiers and officials of Jia Yan's unit, including Jia Yan, saw the scene in the current fighting area. Not to mention other people, even Jia Yan was shocked when he saw this confrontation scene. He deeply felt that not letting Jia Yan's troops enter the central area of the battle was the most correct decision. Because in this large area, there are actually a large number of enemy soldiers and strong men, fighting together. Whether on the ground or in the air, there were a lot of explosions, as well as beings flying and falling from time to time, coming and going everywhere. A large number of enemies, more than the grassland troops, ferociously suppressed the grassland troops in the air. Originally, the grassland troops were shaky, but for some reason, there were suddenly 2 more domain lords on the grassland troops. As a result, the enemy's domain when the lord was not in place, the 2 extra territory lords directly attacked the enemy creatures who were less than the territory lord. Every movement and brainwave power caused the death of large swaths of enemy troops. destroyed, which resulted in casualties on both sides, and roughly maintained a balanced stage. In this battlefield, the most terrifying places are undoubtedly two places. That was the center point of the battle between the two territory lords and the two enemy territory lords. Our territory lords are naturally the giant tree and the octopus creature. One of them is defensive, and the other is the main offensive type. When the giant tree creature fights an enemy territory lord, it's like the drowsy confrontation state is obviously the feeling that the giant tree domain master is stronger, but the enemy is often the one attacking. The giant tree creature relies on the branches to constantly sway to resist the attack, causing the enemy to be unable to attack. Find a way to leave immediately. On the other end was the octopus creature. After he became powerful, his brainwave power seemed to have the effect of amplifying himself. For a moment, a monster octopus about 400 to 500 meters tall appeared in the sky. The figure with condensed wave power and countless tentacles began to attack the enemy territory lord fiercely, making the creature feel dizzy and brain-swollen. He could only resist with his own brainwave power, and there was no way at all. Backhand power. Two territory lords. Bastard, it turns out that you two took the initiative to let the main force come into contact with our main force. You are fighting such a main force, and you are actually assisted by two more territory lords. Could it be that you control the power of the grassland war zone and want the two of us to do it? Big forces, why don't you pay more attention to this place? Giant tree, octopus, are you two really looking for death? We had several opportunities to besiege you to death before, but we let you go because of our status as the same domain lords. Now we actually let you go. Want to go against the general trend? It's simply unreasonable. The two territory lords seemed to have seen the most incredible thing. It was not that they were unhappy because they were at a disadvantage after fighting against giant trees or octopus monsters, but because on other battlefields, there were two more. The appearance of a territory lord who controlled the power made them extremely unbelievable. The master's power is weak, while the combined force of the two major forces is strong. This has become something of an open secret in the grassland war zone. The two sides deliberately keep fighting bit by bit, and then the master's troops slowly give up the territory. Just like acting, it is the accepted way of fighting. Unexpectedly, the master's forces went back on their word, and two major domain lords came to the battlefield to help. With such a sudden attack, could it be that they wanted to violate the tacit understanding between the two parties? Humph, what kind of tacit understanding do you two major forces have with us? There is no written statement on this kind of thing. Why is it my fault? Joshua is right. When did we have a tacit understanding with you? And you said you had the chance to kill us, why didn't we think so? In fact, it's just that you four guys are incompetent, right? If you don't have the ability to kill us, why don't you give it a try and see if I and the giant tree can be killed by you? The strong generals of the two armies looked very excited at this time. Any territory lord who has been suppressed by the enemy for so long and now finally has a proud day will be excited. What's more, they had more than one battle with several enemy territory lords. Although there was indeed no death, there were actually many injuries. So, today they finally caught the opportunity and seized to the one-on-one battle between the enemy and the domain master gave them a sense of satisfaction. Revenge, whether it is done to ordinary creatures or to the presence of a territory lord, will always be satisfying. It's just that there are two more territory lords. There is no possibility that we will lose. There are still two territory lords here. The two enemy territory lords were very tough talking. Even at this moment, they did not think they had lost. The main forces of both sides seemed to have carried out the killing by accidental encounter, but in fact, the intelligence of both sides, or the outpost soldiers, had long discovered the existence of the other side. It happened that the war had reached this stage, and it should have been a large-scale war broke out between the main force and the main force. There had been several similar situations before. Each time, the grassland troops fled in embarrassment. So this time, the enemy thought so too, and even two soldiers coming from the other two directions where the domain lords didn't even wait, they rushed forward first and held back the master's troops. But what they never expected was that this time they came forward to bite, which turned into an extremely headache for them, because after the master's troops persisted for a while, two new domain lords came to the battlefield, but they were not them. The territory lords here are the territory lords in the area where the controller has influence. You must know that these two territory lords have never heard that they would come to the grassland to fight. It's like the person who controls the territory violates some tacit understanding and makes the enemy extremely unhappy. Of course, war is war. Even the terms expressly signed by both parties during the war that turned into a treaty may be violated, let alone some kind of tacit understanding that has never been negotiated by both parties. Haha, are there your other two domain lords? Let them come. My two new brothers are waiting to fight with them. Look, the two ordinary soldiers who killed you feel a little tired of it, ha ha ha. The octopus creature was more violent and spoke harsher words. As soon as these words came out, it immediately caused the rage of the two enemy domain lords. It's just that the four major domain lords and Jia Yan, who was outside the field and had no time to see the battle circle, didn't notice that there was a glimmer of light in the eyes of the two enemy domain lords. Lord Jia Yan, there is an enemy division coming from our side. They must be preparing to enter the main battlefield and surround the main force of our army. Very good. Our Jia Yan troops happen to be idle. Now that they are here, they can give us some practice. How many people are there? What is the initial level of the strong ones? High-speed text hand typing chapter list of rebirth of the giant mosquito in the starry sky. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2292. Jia Yan calmly grasped the overall situation of Jia Yan's troops in the tank. Sir, there are about 3,000 people in this partial division. The enemy's main force is strong and may have reached the peak level of the middle-level galaxy. There is no phenomenon of the territory lord showing up. Presumably there is no territory lord in the partial division. Isn't there a territory lord? That's the best. Prepare all my troops and I will take command later. It's time to show the effectiveness of your recent absence from the war. Yes. Yes. Team members of Jia Yan's troops, as well as the captains, responded with high spirits through the communicator at the same time. Get me ready for level 1 combat, and then, first defend against a wave of momentum, and then attack to meet the enemy. Boom. Not long after Jia Yan's words fell, a group of tanks and chariots appeared in front of the partial division of Jia Yan's troops. At the same time, they suddenly launched an attack towards the location of Jia Yan's troops. Coordinate with higher level troops and ask them to activate the interference system to interfere with the accuracy of the opponent's artillery fire. Yes. Defensive formation, start. Brigade number 3 retreats 100 meters, Brigade number 1 and number 2 go up. Yes. Group number 9 detours around the flanks and prepares to attack the enemy from the flank. Yes. Very good. We have defended the first wave. Enter defensive transition. The entire army will be dispersed into small formations. Follow my orders and attack the enemy's camp. Yes. From the beginning, Jia Yan's troops showed extremely amazing fighting skills. Especially when fighting together, the whole army was like an extension of Jia Yan's arms. Each small unit was composed of 3 people, and for a long time after time of training, they are already well versed in Jia Yan's yin and yang dao and instructions. As long as every command is not something they have never heard before, they will usually perform an action that makes Jia Yan feel satisfied. This is also what Jia Yan feels. The creatures within the North Star are indeed very talented. The first wave of enemy attacks were weapons similar to Earth missiles. Jia Yan's troops were on the flank of the main force and could not dodge, because if they dodged, the main force behind them would be affected by this attack, and he was disqualified, so Jia Yan did not issue an order for the entire army to evade, but assembled a defensive formation so that all attacks would attack Jia Yan's troops from the side angle. But for Jia Yan's troops, this wave of attacks by technological weapons was as simple as scratching an itch and had no big effect at all. Especially when Jia Yan ordered it, he had always been relatively strong in defense during training. The 3rd Battalion was at the front, and they carried out the order very well, so the whole army relied on their defense and did not receive much frontal attack power at all. Not long after, the enemy's 3,000-man troops suddenly attacked the front of Jia Yan's troops. But maybe the transmission of information is a little slower, or maybe the impression on Jia Yan's troops, which has not shown up for many days, has become weaker. In short, this enemy force of 3,000 people, one by one, the soldiers waited until they charged in front of Jia Yan's troops, and then some people recognized that the troops who blocked the first wave of their artillery plowing attack were the famous Jia Yan's troops. At this moment, the panic quickly rose. Is this Jia Yan's army? Damn, my God, it turned out to be Jia Yan's troops. Why did our artillery fire just now have no effect at all? Although technological weapons are indeed of little use to the strong, those who are not capable of this are the Jia Yan troops. It's over, Jia Yan's troops. Haven't there been precedents for thousands of people to defeat thousands of people? Why should we fight them when we have nothing to do? We will lose this battle, so run away. To Jia Yan and all the soldiers in Jia Yan's unit, they were a little surprised that the enemy troops who were coming in front of them, with relatively good combat qualities, actually had people's hearts when they realized that the enemy was Jia Yan's troops. A floating feeling. They never thought that the reputation of Jia Yan's troops, although it had become a little bit worse as Jia Yan communicated with several major domain lords in the past few days, was deeply rooted in the enemy and us in this grassland war zone. The traces in the bones of both sides have not disappeared at all. As a result, in a place where Jia Yan's troops were originally thought not to appear, they saw Jia Yan's troops. The 3,000 enemy troops attacking in front of them became panicked. Haha, it just so happened that this enemy force became a little panicked. Let's take advantage of the victory and pursue it. As I said, the 3-3 pursuit system focuses on speed and surprise. Don't forget that the number of enemies is still greater than ours. No need to underestimate the enemy. Yes. Jia Yan's orders were passed out from the chariot one by one. In addition to the entire Jia Yan unit becoming very good under Jia Yan's command, the assistance of those other galaxy-level troops was also extremely important. Together, they gave instructions to assist Jia Yan from the side and commanded the scene. Responsibility, which is what Jia Yan asked them to do. If any team's actions are unreasonable or out of shape, their brainwave power will follow the brainwave power of the entire army that is faintly gathered in one place, and jointly push it forward to bring that team up to standard. And also caused a sense of shame in the team, making them pay more attention to their actions and listen to orders more. In this way, the entire army would help one another and supervise the other, creating a completely iron-barreled feeling. This was also Jia Yan's roundabout strategy, which made this army not as smooth as his own brainwave guidance, but not too bad. In this way, the efficiency and combat effectiveness of the entire unit can be considered to have reached the ultimate level based on the level of yin and yang dao and the level of training. Bang! A joint team of venerables rushed towards a star and a half-star in one body. The half-star seemed to have some illusions, thinking that they were facing 3.5 stars of the same level. Come together to chase yourself. But what he saw in front of him were 3 venerables. In his normal condition, he would kill them with just a wave of his hand. Is Jia Yan's army so impressive? Are 3 venerables coming to hunt down a half-star like me? It's simply unreasonable. This half-star didn't look down on Jia Yan's troops. He also knew that under certain circumstances, the venerable leader of Jia Yan's troops had actually done something like killing half of the stars. But he didn't think that since he was also a half-star level soldier, the soldiers he met in front of him should not be able to compete with the half-star level soldiers of Jia Yan's army. After all, as far as he was concerned, Jia Yan's army was not maybe the entire army has that ability. So he suddenly activated his brainwave power, stood up in an instant, and turned into a super terrifying creature that emitted balls of fire. Within a second, it blasted towards the 3 venerables who had joined forces. Here we come, prepare a response plan. Don't forget that we are members of Jia Yan's army. Although it is our first time to face such an enemy, we are from Jia Yan's army. In name, everyone has the ability to fight across ranks. Jia Yan, the members of the rock team, and every team, must have the level of cross-level combat to be at the normal level. Come on. Come on. Of the 3 venerable level beings, one stepped forward and became the main being facing attacks, while the other 2 were incarnated as negative level beings. One of them also played a supporting role in assisting the main attacker. Why don't you run away? Go to hell. The half-star existence originally did not want to engage in a head-on battle with the Trinity members of Jia Yan's troops, because no matter whether he lost or won, it would attract the attention of other members of Jia Yan's troops around him. Although he thought that a member of Lord Jia Yan's army cannot defeat him, but he did not say that 2 such teams cannot defeat him either. If Jia Yan's troops were that simple, they wouldn't have such a reputation, which he wouldn't deny. So he didn't want to fight with this team, but the problem was that the team still came forward. The arrow is on the string and must be released. Boom. The moment the 2 sides handed over, this half-star existence seemed to have attacked some terrifying reef that he could not believe. Suddenly, this half-star creature retreated a lot. The Trinity Venerable class of Jia Yan's troops also looked uncomfortable and quickly retreated 50 or 60 meters in the air. But in their eyes, there was a light of extreme surprise. There's a chance. We can really fight against a star and a half. Come again. Haha, it's so cool. A star and a half actually tied with the 3 of us. If we go up again, if we didn't cooperate well just now, Lord Jia Yan might scold us. In order to prevent adults from scolding us, we have to behave well. Ha ha ha. The 3 soldiers, as if suddenly, felt the significance of the identity of members of Jia Yan's troops. Being a member of this team means that they can really kill enemies across levels. Especially if they have several teammates around them, they can definitely resist a strong person who is 1 level higher. In this way, the matter becomes less of a danger to them. Their self-confidence increased, but it was half a star level compared to the battle with these few. For a moment, they felt that they truly realized how terrifying the members of Jia Yan's troops were. How is it possible? It must be the first time for these 3 guys to face a half-star level person, but they still fight me when they are fighting a half-star level person for the first time. It's a tie. This, could it be that if they are familiar with fighting with a half-star, they can defeat me? No, no. The people in Jia Yan's army really have this possibility. He was stunned, and there was a deep chill in his heart. It's too scary. The existence of Jia Yan's troops, 3 venerable level ones, doesn't seem to be a combat type. Such 3 soldiers can fight to a tie with a half-star level, and they may even kill them. Although I am not a combat type half-star, or even just a low-level half-star, but I am definitely not the kind of half-star who is only at the bottom. If everyone in Jia Yan's army had such combat effectiveness, this army would be a force that defies heaven. He didn't have time to say anything more, and he could only think of the above. The members of Jia Yan's troops in front of him, whose self-confidence had greatly improved, suddenly joined forces one by one, and at the speed of light cavalry training, they went super fast. Came to this semi-star level existence. Take another blow from me, you're semi-star level senior, haha. The main attacking soldier had a hint of ferocity on his face. I heard that teams that had won over-level battles in the past had won certificates from the army. This was a huge honor. It was hard to believe that today, the three-person team would also receive such a certificate. Joining Jia Yan's army is already an honor. If you can still be in this army and get the certificate of overranking killing, it will be like a meritorious service. Even if you leave the army in the future, it will be worth bragging about for the rest of your life. Things. The three soldiers were like extremely bloodthirsty murderers who became irrational in an instant as soon as they knew their abilities. But the problem is that they are not very rational, and there is nothing wrong with them, because this is a war period, and there are a large number of friendly troops around them, and there are also commanders in the rear who can stop them at any time. Exists. As a result, their nature was not restricted, but was encouraged, and they began a killing journey across levels. Asshole. The semi-star level expert suddenly felt his head hurt when he saw the three soldiers from Jia Yan's army attacking and killing them in an instant, regardless of the strength gap between the two sides. He has finally seen the strength of Jia Yan's troops. The problem now is that if he fights these three soldiers, he doesn't say whether he will win or not. He only says that even if he wins, but after falling into a fightable situation, with so many squads of Jia Yan troops around, there will definitely be one team that rushes forward to join forces with these three soldiers. One team can be dealt with by oneself, but what about the two teams? He is definitely going to lose. Damn Jia Yan's troops, why do every one of them have the ability to kill people beyond their ranks? Oh no, why does every team have the ability to transcend levels? Doesn't this magnify their combat effectiveness too much? This is also true. When this half-star existence entered into a fierce battle with the members of Jia Yan's troops in front of him, the performance of Jia Yan's troops on the entire battlefield was just as this half-star was worried about. Every member of Jia Yan's army team performed extremely terrifyingly. It was as if they had found their opponents in advance, and they were all capable of fighting against the reported enemies. Moreover, the members of Jia Yan's unit were not very strong, and their number was 3 times less than the enemies. But the problem is, their fighting power together is simply incredible. Those at the same level can be killed in 1 or 2 hits, just like killing a fly. But for those at a higher level, they can at least basically tie it. High-speed text hand typing chapter list of rebirth of the giant mosquito in the starry sky. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2293. Even if they are at a certain disadvantage, if the friendly troops around them are free and then enter the battle group, the enemy will be attacked from both sides and completely lose their threat. In such a delicate battle, someone may have already noticed that the reason why Jia Yan's troops were so rationally allocated in this battle was because the senior officials commanding the troops behind them had too evil vision. That's right, this senior official is none other than Jia Yan himself. The cooperation is good. This enemy force of 3,000 people is not a big challenge to the new soldiers under my command. Jia Yan lives in the chariot and controls the entire war remotely. Not only did he feel good about himself, he also lamented from time to time the talents and cooperation among the members of Jia Yan's unit. After all, they are different from the creatures in Orion's arms and the farmers in the central star field of the Milky Way and the peaceful star field. The creatures in the northern superstar have probably lived here for countless years and developed amazing talents and combat understanding. Ability, therefore, with the help of Jia Yan's new training and combat skills, they can easily display a higher combat effectiveness. No wonder, the existence of several domain masters such as the Master Force, after knowing my Yin and Yang Dao combined techniques, they value it so much. There are so many talented people, as long as I am given a decent skill, they can use it quickly. In actual combat, what is missing is just a method. It seems that my joint strategy is more worthy of their attention than I imagined. Through such a brief battle, Jia Yan instantly established his status as a combined yin and yang Dao method. Boom boom boom. On the battlefield, the situation is changing, and each encounter is an event that may affect the main battlefield and the direction of the entire battlefield. Jia Yan's troops were on this flank to meet the enemy's reinforcements. It seemed that the main battle group fighting with 20,000 to 30,000 main troops was not at the same level. However, when they intercepted them, they might have affected the main battle group. When an enemy force of 3,000 men arrived, the dynamics here instantly attracted the attention of all parties. Huh? What kind of Jia Yan troops are they? This army is so powerful. There are only 1,000 people. How can they fight against an army of 3,000 people? My God, their casualty rate is too low. It seems that the 3,000-man army is about to be defeated. But they themselves don't seem to have much casualty rate. What kind of combat effectiveness is this? This Jia Yan's troops are amazing. I knew they were scary before, but they don't seem to be so scary. Who is Jia Yan? He can actually train such a troop. It's over. With such a force guarding the flanks, at least the reinforcements here will not be able to pass through unless there are more than 5,000 troops. No, no, you have forgotten that there are other forces on this battlefield that are enough to restrict them. That's the territory lord. I don't believe it. Jia Yan's troops are powerful, but even the territory lord can't deal with them. Impossible. There are many high-level officials in each arm of the battle group who are discussing the matter of Jia Yan's troops. Some of the enemy troops were first shocked when talking about Jia Yan's troops, and then they were indifferent to it. Too much worry. Such a terrifying force must be solved by someone from above. The most likely way is to dispatch a domain lord to completely disrupt Jia Yan's troops. The best way is to kill the commander Jia Yan. In this way, come on, without Jia Yan's exquisite command, the threat level of Jia Yan's troops will be greatly reduced even if they can still exist. Jia Yan, you have to be careful. The enemy army has 2 territory lords who are coming towards this direction. Their army numbers are superior no matter what, although we still have a territory lord hidden by your side. Guard, but I see from the intelligence that there are certain changes within them, so you have to be careful. If nothing can be done, then take your troops and escape. Suddenly, the brainwave power of the giant tree domain master passed through the layers of obstacles and reached Jia Yan's ears from a distance. Jia Yan, who was commanding Jia Yan's troops and letting them display their astonishing combat effectiveness, was slightly startled and then nodded. Senior Jushu, don't worry, I'm not that stupid, and I also have a certain ability to protect myself. If a domain really comes, I will retreat. Jia Yan calmly used his brainwave power, and actually passed through many signal blocks and interference from powerful men in various battle groups, transmitting the brainwave power sound to the place where the giant tree domain lord was fighting. Oh! Is this kid's brainwave power so pure? That's right, his yin and yang Dao seems to be good at this kind of breakthrough, using the power of positive and negative to create amazing penetrating power. What? It's quite novel. Unfortunately, I haven't had time to listen to him talk about yin and yang in the past few days. If I have a chance next time, I should listen to it carefully. It will also be a wealth of knowledge. The giant tree territory lord who was fighting against an enemy of the territory lord's expression changed slightly, and then sighed. Jia Yan often has a performance that makes them, the territory lords, more amazed. This is also the reason why several territory lords have gradually unified their attitude towards Jia Yan in the past. The giant tree, was it distracted during the battle? Bang! The enemy territory lord who attacked the giant tree flashed a fierce expression, and then there was another fierce attack force, hitting the endless branches of the giant tree creature. However, this blow only made the branches tremble for a while, but it had no effect at all. Your Excellency, you should understand that I am strong in defense and generally stronger than you, so put away your useless efforts. Even if I am distracted, I am not something you can deal with. The giant tree said calmly, then put aside the conversation with Jia Yan, and continued to engage in a more intense battle with the domain lord creature in front of him. Jia Yan, who was far away, also knew that the several domain masters had their own affairs, and did not mind that the giant tree senior did not reply to him. Hey, is it possible that the territory lord will come? That's fine. Although I promised that I will leave as soon as possible, the territory lord. There was a trace of fighting spirit boiling in his eyes. If no domain lord comes to this area, it will be enough to clean up their Jia Yan troops. If they come, the 4-in-1 combat training he and several galaxy mid-level and above teammates have done may come in handy. He wanted to see if his Yin-Yang Dao combined tactics were effective when fighting against a territory lord. If it really happened in this war, in addition to showing the terrifying power of Jia Yan's troops, he also fought with several galactic warriors. It would be interesting to join forces to compete with the domain lord. Lord Jia Yan, the enemy army has begun to collapse. Our army has about 10 casualties. Huh? There are actually 10 casualties. Let me see. Sure enough, there are 10 casualties, but only one died. The other 9 teams were injured due to carelessness or too much effort in chasing the enemy. Fortunately, among misfortunes, let the injured return to the medical tank, and then start to trace the cause of the problem. If it is the Shangguan's problem, then only the Shangguan can ask. Yes. Jia Yan's thoughts were interrupted by his deputy's report. He calmly looked at the information on the battlefield and then issued new instructions. For him, the current battlefield has gradually become the advantage of Jia Yan's troops, and there is an army's momentum that is even more unimaginable than others, so he doesn't have to worry about anything. Combat effectiveness is one aspect, a force's momentum, and another aspect that improves the combat effectiveness of the troops. When Jia Yan's troops first started fighting, there was still a little bit of chaos. But now, the entire army has gradually gained some invincible momentum. Once such momentum and confidence are generated, the combat effectiveness of this unit will be greatly improved. However, Jia Yan obviously underestimated the true influence of his unit. Their momentum was unleashed, and the friendly forces around them who were watching the scene were also stimulated, and at the same time their self-confidence exploded. With Jia Yan's troops here, we will win this battle, kill them. Jia Yan's troops are too powerful. 1,000 against 3,000, 3 times the disadvantage of the enemy and us, but they still suppress the enemy and fight with only so many casualties. Even the 3,000 enemy troops are beginning to collapse. Oh my God! What kind of army is this? Too strong. As for the friendly forces, they were completely shocked by this terrifyingly powerful force, and then they became convinced that they would win with such friendly forces. But when it comes to the enemy, it's completely the opposite. Jia Yan's troops, is this Jia Yan's troops? Seeing is better than hearing 100 times. Is this kind of army really just what the intelligence said? It was just built by Jia Yan and took less than half a year. How on earth is such an army trained? Is his yin and yang method of joint warfare really so terrifying? I don't believe that our invincible army could actually be defeated because of such a small force of 1,000 people. Who on earth can go over and suppress this Jia Yan army? Otherwise we will lose all confidence, and after the 3,000 troops pass by, who can resist the Jia Yan army with a victorious attitude? The entire enemy army was like mourning people everywhere. The mood of defeat turned into more frustration because the Master's forces temporarily had 2 more territory lords than them on this grassland battlefield. Under such circumstances, some soldiers were even ready to desert. Even if being a deserter is not that glorious, if everyone escapes together, there will be less responsibility in the future. Besides, if you don't escape, you may die if you stay here. It was just too late for everything to happen. Because before that, the rescue from the enemy finally arrived. Hey! You guys who control the power, you actually took advantage of the fact that our two brothers were not here to get close, and actually launched a whole army battle. Are you playing tricks? Yeah, Giant Tree Old Thief, Octopus Old Dog, and the other two domain lords, you are simply the most outrageous enemies in the world, take my blow. On the battlefield, when the enemy was preparing to feel defeated, another large enemy force arrived at the edge of the battlefield. The number of this army is tens of thousands, and it is close to 20,000, 17,800 people, galloping in from a distance, and even this 10,000 strong army appears to be surrounded. The trend is to surround the entire battlefield as soon as they arrive and fight a battle of annihilation of the Master's forces. Huh? There are so many enemy troops coming, are they all here? On the side of Jia Yan's troops, when Jia Yan heard the roar of brainwave power before, he clicked on the electronic intelligence screen of the situation. After taking a few glances, he became solemn again. The more than 10,000 troops that the enemy came over were all part of another force's grassland army, and all of them were quite powerful. What's more important is that there are two other territory lords from the two enemy alliances in their army. It was these two territory lords who just roared with brainwave power. And these two domain masters are probably the most difficult existences to deal with. They are two biological brothers. The combined fighting power is difficult for two ordinary domain masters to defeat. In fact, the grassland troops and the enemy from the four major domains have previously been when the Lord fights, the two territory lords are most afraid of. Every time they fight, the giant tree and the octopus creature will choose the opportunity to escape after their two territory lords come forward. Are you coming? Brothers and friends, we have finished warming up. Come on, let's give it a try. Pangolin and another territory lord of the picket force had been fighting soldiers and shrimps for a long time in the outside world. When they saw the surrounding territory lord troops, they immediately gave up the idea of fighting the shrimp soldiers and generals, and instead flew to the surrounding troops. Oh! These two territory lords who control the power are very nervous. I didn't expect that you, the ones who control the power, would have the time to control such a remote battlefield. The two approaching enemy territory lord brothers were two big birds. Seeing the pangolins and the two territory lord creatures coming forward, their expressions became very excited. Obviously, they were the type who liked fighting. But the words spoken by another territory lord brother made the pangolin creature jump suddenly. Ha ha ha, that's a coincidence. Each of our two major forces has reinforced another domain lord. Two of you have come, and two of us have come. It's very fair, ha 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 ha. After the big bird finished speaking, he rushed towards the pangolin creature, while his other big bird brother rushed towards the other territory lord next to the pangolin. What? Are there reinforcements? The expression of the pangolin creature changed. The behavior of the other territory lord and the giant tree creature listening to their conversation also changed. Two more enemy territory lords are here? Where are they? How is it possible? They have two more here. Doesn't it mean that they have 6 domain lords? Those of us present, plus those lurking around Jiayan, are only 5 domain lords. The expressions of the 5 territory lords present, including the Black Bear territory lord who was hiding in a chariot in Jiayan's army and had always been indifferent, changed. High-speed text hand typing chapter list of rebirth of the giant mosquito in the starry sky. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2294. What? I didn't expect it? What a coincidence. Originally, We thought that the two more territory lords would crush the grassland troops of your masters. I didn't expect that you would also come to reinforce us. What a coincidence. What a coincidence. Both of you, since we have revealed your existence, you should show up. Aren't you just a Jiayan troop? If you still want to attack by surprise, it would be too embarrassing for us and the other domain lords. The two brothers, Big Bird territory lords, looked up to the sky and roared. Hearing these voices, most of the soldiers in Jiayan's army, including Jiayan himself, suddenly became ugly. Immediately afterwards, an indescribable sense of power gradually amplified among the huge troops surrounding Xiang Jiayan's troops. Like the power of a shockwave, the nearby enemy troops retreated one by one. Obviously, even they did not expect that there was such a terrifying strong man in their own army tank. Ha ha ha, Your Excellencies, you actually shouted at us. This is not kind. Originally, we were thinking of destroying this Jiayan army with a thunderous strike, but we didn't expect that you actually revealed our identity. It's not fun. Bang. When two other strange sounds suddenly appeared, there was one person in Jiayan's army who was probably not inferior to the strength of the territory lord and took action directly. The first enemy he found came from an existence that had distorted space. This existence definitely had owner-level strength. It was twisted in the air. Even Jiayan didn't notice it before the domain master from Jiayan's army took action. To his presence. What? There is actually another territory lord, the one who controls the power, the one who controls the power. I didn't expect you to have 5 great territory lords here today. If our reinforcements hadn't happened to come, I'm afraid our grassland war zone would have been doomed. In this twisted air, something like an outstretched giant's hand collided directly with the figure that seemed to be rushing out of Jiayan's troops, and then both of them violently retreated backwards. What a powerful claw, are you, a furbolg? The creature that appeared from the air seemed to have seen something amazing, and looked at the attacking monster in front of it, a black monster that seemed to be a furbolg. Sure enough, the territory lord who had been lying in wait for a long time in Jiayan's troops, and who originally just wanted to hide his figure in Jiayan's troops and then protect Jiayan, was the black bear monster that Jiayan was also familiar with. Another Excellency, please come out too. I never said that you can pass through me and attack our commander Jiayan. The black bear looked ugly. After fighting with the first domain lord, he suddenly turned his head and then waved his claws over, aiming at a piece of air. Then, in this piece of air, it was as if he was suddenly fiercely struck by the power of brain waves. The tear caused another existence in the air, which also stumbled into appearance. 2 territory lords. Jiayan, who was in the command tank at the center of Jiayan's army, finally understood the current scene, and his face became extremely ugly. There are actually 2 territory lords. In other words, the enemy's army has gained 2 territory lords in one go. It has become a battle between our 5 territory lords and the enemy's 6 territory lords. Moreover, the existence of these 2 new domain lords seems to be extremely powerful. They can hide in the air and have a faint smell of subspace. This unique method makes them both have outstanding combat capabilities. Existence, with the obstruction of His Excellency the Lord of the Bear Territory, I am afraid it will be a bit difficult. Jiayan, you have to be careful. I may not be able to protect you for a while, but we still have the advantage on the central battlefield. I only need to resist these 2 guys for a while, and then I can drag them inside and come out for reinforcements. Rumors about the Lord of the Bear Territory came out suddenly, and he felt very protective of Jiayan. Senior. Jiayan was in the chariot, looking a little bitter. Then, the 2 territory lords who were shaken out of the twisted space suddenly aimed at the black bear-like creature and launched an attack. Ha ha ha, it's actually a bear-like creature. You know, I've always hated bear-like creatures in my life, because you killed my father. One of the territory lords seemed to have gone crazy when he saw the bear-like territory lord, and his attack was both ferocious and extremely violent. Haha, it seems that you want to deal with this bear creature alone, so I won't care about him forcing me out of the air. I'll go deal with this Jiayan army. The last territory lord who appeared seemed to be a bit strange and insect-like. He smiled faintly, then twisted his figure and prepared to go to Jiayan's troops not far in front of him. Ordinary territory lords are one-sided when dealing with ordinary biological soldiers. When this territory lord who distorts the air enters Jiayan's troops, even Jiayan's troops with good combat effectiveness will probably become hell on earth. He was directly killed by this territory lord and his blood flowed like a river. A territory lord is a territory lord, not to mention, this territory lord is also a territory lord with astonishing strength. You actually want to deal with ordinary troops? Stop right there. At the same moment when he was about to rush into Jiayan's troops, a roar came out violently from the fighting group. It turned out to be the bear territory lord, who took action again at this moment. The territory leader who was hiding in the sub-air and wanted to attack Jiayan's troops seemed to be shocked by something. Suddenly, his whole body trembled and his figure emerged from the air. He stared back at the black bear creature fiercely, and seemed to be about to change direction and prepare to join forces to kill the black bear creature. Don't come over, I'll kill this bear, ha ha ha. Besides, he doesn't want that army to perish. It must be that the army has a big secret. I've heard of Jiayan's army, ha ha ha, it's very powerful, especially their leader. If you want to kill them, maybe we won't have the advantage later. The crazy domain lord who was fighting with the black bear intercepted the air-twisting insect creature that was about to charge back, and the words he spoke pointed directly at the essence of things, causing the insect-like creature to be covered in ashes. Shock. After that, he nodded, regardless of whether the bear territory lord here released another roaring shockwave, because this kind of attack had no effect on him at all. He just rushed straight towards Jiayan's troops. Coming. A territory lord? My mother. Lord Jiayan, what should we do? A domain lord has personally committed suicide against our troops. Do we still want to intercept him? No, I wanted to escape, but the defeated enemy troops behind me actually launched a fierce attack, preparing to drag us to death. I don't want to fight a domain lord. I want to leave. Let us go. On Jiayan's unit, every soldier and non-commissioned officer has the same mentality at this moment. The territory lord in front of them is coming towards them, and it is obvious that he wants to kill this army, and the status and strength of a territory lord are no match for any life in the North Star. Oh no, even if this data is placed on in the entire galaxy, in the eyes of all living beings who know the domain lord level, it is all godlike power rushing towards them. Even Jiayan feels this way. But his mentality is different from that of ordinary soldiers in Jiayan's army. Here comes a territory lord. At this moment, Jiayan was surprisingly calm, even a little too calm. Call. As a commander, his mind is completely in a very calm state, even if at the moment, there is a territory lord, heading towards their troops, to be precise, straight towards the tank where he is. When he came, Jiayan was still very calm. He stood up and gave his final orders inside the chariot. The whole army continues to fight. This territory lord, someone will intercept him. After Jiayan silently issued the order, he pressed another separate group communication channel, and then said something to the inside of the channel calmly. Guys, after training for so many days, now is the time for us to show results. I won't force you. I just want to ask. Are you willing to follow me, Jiayan, and go crazy? Silence. At least there was a second of silence. In this second, even if the flying speed of any creature in the North Star is much slower, it is still enough for the territory lord to get closer to Jiayan's troops. But in this second, Jia Yan didn't say anything else. For him, facing such a domain lord creature is also a big challenge, not to mention the other those team members. Apart from one mid-level peak of the galaxy, the other two do not even have the mid-level peak of the galaxy. Isn't it a bit overwhelming for them to face a territory lord? Jia Yan didn't even have time to think about this. At this moment, even if he couldn't go up, he had no choice but to go up. The seemingly contradictory words are not a big problem for Jia Yan. If they can't rely on them, then it's just me. Of course, I won't choose to fight head-on. Instead, I will use my subspace talent. Escape is also a strategy. Jia Yan has already used the public program channel. With the blessing of this channel, he can quickly use his subspace ability, and then easily escape into the subspace. Of course, it seems that half of the body of the coming creature has also fallen into the subspace. Jia Yan is not sure whether he can also understand the subspace. If he can, then it will be different from a person with a talent for subspace. Territory Lord, compared to the ability to fly in subspace, Jia Yan feels that he is a little miserable. Of course, within the North Star, there are not many territory lords with subspace talents. Jia Yan believes that he will not be so unlucky. Presumably this territory lord should be a person who has mastered a certain amount of subspace for talents. Exist. So, if there is no problem with this prediction, then he will not be in too much danger. Even if those teammates are unwilling to take risks, he will have a certain chance of survival. Clang. The steel door of the chariot opened. Jia Yan felt a ray of sunlight, looked up, and saw that in the sky, the star in the northern giant sky was like a brilliant firework, blooming with a very beautiful brilliance. This sunshine is really beautiful. Jia Yan was distracted for a moment, and then smiled to himself. On such a battlefield, why are you distracted to see the beautiful scenery? Could this be a sign that you might die today? He didn't want to die after having overcome so many dangers and difficulties, and that he would be able to live a good life and everything would be smooth sailing. For Jia Yan, that would be the most unpleasant thing for him. Moment. What do you guys think? Jia Yan made a sound in the teammate channel again. Us. It's really impossible for us to fight a territory lord. In the teammates channel, those teammates who are scattered around the galaxy mid-level and above are still in the corners of the brigades they command, without any sign of movement. Jia Yan? Are you willing to show up in your chariot? It saves me the time of searching one by one. Ha ha ha, just die. Suddenly, before Jia Yan could persuade several teammates, a being with a shocking and fierce aura flew in front of Jia Yan from one end of the sky. This monster looks like a bug, or some kind of young caterpillar. It has long strips all over its body, but it has countless compound legs and is covered with sharp bristles. It looks extremely scary to people. Senior, hello, I wonder if I can stop fighting you. I definitely can't beat you. Ha 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 ha, Jia Yan, do you understand the gap very well, but there is no way. This is a battlefield. You are a unique existence on this battlefield. I want to kill you, otherwise there may be variables. Look, the one who protects you, the territory lords are all anxious. Obviously, you should be an important role in this space. If I kill you, maybe several territory lords who control the power will have ups and downs in their mentality. Our winning rate will also be higher, ha ha ha, die. The brainwave power of both parties seemed to have communicated a lot, but in fact, less than 0.001 second passed. After all these exchanges, the territory lord twisted the air around his body and suddenly charged in front of Jia Yan. The countless legs on his body were lifted up in an instant, ready to step on Jia Yan's head. At the same time, a simple and crude brainwave power that only belongs to the strong suppressing the weak suddenly suppressed Jia Yan's body, causing his whole body to tremble, as if he was being suppressed by some kind of terrifying monster. Barely able to move. Of course, this is only almost, but it is not absolute. It's so scary. I'm about to be suppressed in an instant. Is this the positive suppression power of a territory lord? And it's very obvious that although this territory lord has strong overall strength, it is definitely not strong in brainwave power. That is, say, even a weak territory lord has such brainwave power. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2295. Even the weakest domain lord level brainwave power, a mid-level galaxy powerhouse who is about to be promoted, can't withstand it. This shows how huge the gap is between domain lords and other levels. Jia Yan's heart seemed to be filled with countless thoughts, but at this moment, he forced himself to be neither sad nor happy. As I said, he was just almost about to be completely suppressed, so since the word almost was used, it meant that things were turning around. Yes, although he was almost suppressed by the brainwave power of a domain lord, he could still move part of his body. Moreover, in addition to most of his brainwave power being used to resist the opponent's brainwave power suppression, the other part is fiercely directed within the subspace that has been opened for a while. Puff puff. I saw a fierce gust of wind blowing in the air, and the overwhelming smoke and dust showed how terrifying the brainwave power of a powerful domain lord was. Everything happening now was created by that insect-like territory lord. But when he had used his brainwave power to suppress Jia Yan overwhelmingly, he saw that space channels suddenly opened behind Jia Yan. Huh? Subspace. The insect creature's demeanor changed slightly, and then revealed a ferocious look. Unexpectedly, Jia Yan, the famous and powerful commander of the Master Prairie Force, in addition to his unique commanding ability, is actually a subspace talent? But it's useless. Although your subspace speed is fast, it is not my speed is fast. Look, my feet are about to penetrate your body, suffer death. This insect creature has thousands of disgusting steps. In an instant, there are a large number of steps trying to pierce into Jia Yan's body. Oh, yeah, it seems that this senior knows a lot about me, but since you know me so well, why don't you understand that I have another big killer in battle? Jia Yan's voice, transmitted through the power of brainwaves, seemed calm, as if he didn't have much fear in front of a domain lord. In fact, Jia Yan is not unafraid, but at this point, fear is useless, not to mention that he really doesn't seem to have that much fear, because being chased and beaten by a domain lord is more dangerous than this. At that time, he was still himself. I have encountered it all when my strength was lower. So after thinking about it carefully, he quickly became calm. At the same time, when Jia Yan said this so-called another big killer weapon, the domain master creature was slightly startled and then reacted. It turned out that around Jia Yan's body, at some point, there were extremely small white mineral stones, like inconspicuous pebbles, flying in the sky. They are like elves guarding Jia Yan's body quickly in the sky. What kind of explosive is this? Huh, I don't believe it. It's also effective against a domain lord. Break it for me. At this moment, the Changza territory lord did not believe in evil at all, and immediately attacked Jia Yan's face with his steps. It sounds like it took a long time, but in fact, the process was very fast. As fast as lightning, the two sides were talking and attacking in a split second. An instant later, countless soldiers and non-commissioned officers of Jia Yan's troops around were all filled with jealousy, fearing that their commander Jia Yan would die under the attack of a domain lord. Not only them, but also the territory lords in the battles among the several battle groups in the center of the battlefield were also looking at the battlefield with great concern at this moment. In their fight, it was difficult to tell the difference for a while, so instead of using so much effort to distinguish life and death, it is better to see what will happen to this rising star who has performed so well in the grassland war zone. And, of course, for several enemy territory lords, it would be a disaster for Jia Yan to be chased and killed by a territory lord himself. But for the territory lord who controls the power, he has a different view. To them, the more they learned about Jia Yan, the more they felt that he was not just an ordinary galaxy mid-level person. Although they could not guarantee that Jia Yan could survive being chased by a domain lord himself, they had no reason to believe that Jia Yan would not die so easily. It does not actually exist in the world and there is no reason to believe it. And even the territory lord will have a sense of trust in Jia Yan, but for the territory lord, it is not that simple that they just choose to trust a weak person. Even if they themselves can't tell the reason, in fact, they are subtle. I understand some of Jia Yan's characteristics. This trait was finally demonstrated when a domain lord attacked Jia Yan. Boom 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 boom. When the domain lord creature was about to attack Jia Yan's body, he saw small pebble-like explosives surrounding Jia Yan's side, like terrifying bullets flying down. Then one bloomed in front of the thousands of steps of this domain lord creature. Bang bang bang. The earth-shattering explosion sound swept through the area where Jia Yan was and the territory lord in front of him. What? The power of this explosion is so terrifying and powerful. The expression of the thousands-footed insect creature changed drastically. Although this kind of explosion, which can easily kill the mid-level combat-type galaxy peak, does not have much damage to his soft, insect-like body, it really blocked his body. Puff. Jia Yan spit out a mouthful of blood at the same time, and the huge mosquito body quickly retreated. Suddenly, he retreated into the entrance of the subspace, and then entered the subspace with a slightly slumped expression. In other words, when he was personally chased by a domain lord creature, he managed to escape in front of him. This is extremely difficult for an experienced combat-type creature at the top of the mid-level galaxy, not to mention that it is the first time for Jia Yan to try this. Not to mention a shocking victory. Did you escape? What a powerful explosion, and what a powerful subspace talent. The big insect creature felt extremely surprised. In fact, he was not shocked that Jia Yan was able to escape from his hands once, because in the North Star, there is still a certain possibility for a truly powerful fighting mid-level peak powerhouse in the galaxy, in the presence of a territory lord escape with your life from the hands of others. But if a territory lord really uses real fire, or uses all his power, it can be said that it is almost impossible for any creature under a territory lord to escape their pursuit. In the current situation, he did not use all his strength, and he also wanted to see what kind of unique abilities this well-known commander in the grassland, who was widely spread as a magical master, would have. When I see him now, it is really better to see him than to hear him once. Jia Yan is very capable and can escape with his life under his hands. He is very powerful. However, he didn't feel annoyed or anything, he just felt that he had to do something serious. Puff. But I'm sorry, I am also a creature who knows certain subspace skills. It's a pity that I was a subspace genius at the beginning. After learning the three-legged cat subspace abilities from my master, I killed him, haha. Haha, I'm a fool to kill my own master, ha ha ha. This insect-like creature probably had something wrong with his brain. When Jia Yan entered the subspace, he felt sad and happy at the same time. Then he unexpectedly opened the insect's mouthparts, which might make people on Earth's hair stand on end, but also made them feel extremely disgusting. The mouthparts cracked countless teeth, and a large amount of silk thread spewed out from the inside of the mouthparts. Swish. These threads shot into the subspace one after another, as if pursuing Jia Yan. Jia Yan, who was inside the subspace, was still a little nervous at the moment. Even though he had escaped with his life just now under the attack of a strong domain master, looking back, he always felt that even if any step was wrong, or if he is too slow, he will die without a burial place. Huh? What is this? When he was about to choose an opportunity to use the space-folding advantage of the subspace to distance himself from the enemy of the domain lord and appear outside the subspace from other directions, he felt a great sense of crisis. At the crack in the subspace behind him, thread-like things suddenly flew from the outside of the subspace into the interior of the subspace. Jia Yan's expression suddenly froze, and then he twisted his body, followed the most instinctive escape plan, and barely avoided being attacked on his vital parts. Even so, Jia Yan was still shaken all over, and he felt a huge pain on the left side of Mosquito's chest. It turned out to be the enemy's thread, which penetrated Jia Yan's body from the left side of his chest in one breath. Although only one thread caused damage, it still made Jia Yan's whole body instantly sluggish. Jia Yan only felt that he might have underestimated the strength of a domain lord. Of course, he also felt that he was relatively lucky. For Jia Yan, being able to survive an encounter with a territory lord was extremely exciting, not to mention that he was only slightly injured. This thread only passed in an instant. I can feel that it can no longer cause any damage in my body. In other words, once it is absorbed by the physique of the evolved beast in my body, it is actually digested by me. I'm afraid that the territory lord will be shocked if he knows about this. Jia Yan felt his injuries and immediately breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment in the outside world, everyone was nervous, especially several territory lords. They were always paying attention to what was going on here. They saw that although Jia Yan escaped and entered the subspace, the insect-like territory lord, he actually had some talent in the subspace, spitting out a ball of silk-like attacks. After chasing into the subspace, the domain masters, especially the pangolins who knew the importance of Jia Yan, could not help but wanted to rush forward to help. But the problem is that although their respective enemy territory lords are not as strong as them, they can still retain them in a short period of time. Damn it! The pangolin was so uncomfortable that it aimed at the creature in front of it and suddenly attacked with all its strength. On the other side, the black bear-like creature that was originally ordered to protect Jia Yan was also extremely annoyed at this time. He thought that he might have killed Jia Yan. Ho, you're all going to die. The black bear went crazy, and his strength almost skyrocketed. Be careful, these guys are very optimistic about that Jia Yan, and now they are angry. Among the enemy territory lords, there were also relatively calm ones, and they immediately sent out brainwave power to remind the other territory lords around them. Every territory lord felt that Jia Yan might be in trouble. But just when they went to war for this reason, they were preparing to once again enhance their combat effectiveness and fight a life-and-death battle. Buzz. 1 kilometer away from the big insect domain lord, the subspace was torn apart by an invisible force. A mosquito creature whose whole body began to bloom with azure light stumbled out of the subspace. It was Jia Yan. Although the injury on his chest still left a hole that penetrated front and back, it was visible to the naked eye that it was shrinking rapidly due to the appearance of the blue defense. Huh? This guy is not dead. Is he really such a powerful fighting creature? How powerful? On the other end, the big insect creature domain master's expression finally changed. His first attack was blocked by Jia Yan, and Jia Yan escaped into the subspace. He was not that surprised. But the second time, he exposed his space ability to a certain extent, and also used the ability to spin silk in a sinister way. In this way, Jia Yan was saved by Jia Yan, which was a bit more gain than loss. At the same time, he also became strange. This Jia Yan was indeed a person who gave their colleagues in the grassland army a headache when looking for books. Haha, that guy hates Jia Yan, let me take revenge for him. At the moment, he was not shocked at all, because some of the powerful fighting-type mid-level galaxy peaks were able to escape with their lives several times under the attack of a domain lord creature, but all of this required it is based on one premise, that is, the domain owner has not made any real move. Now that he knew that Jia Yan might escape with his life under his attack, he had to take action. He didn't believe it, and seriously, could Jia Yan, a peak mid-level star in the galaxy, still be able to escape? Then he, the Territory Lord, doesn't need to be a fool. It would be easier to just find a piece of tofu and kill him. Buzz. The Territory Lord suddenly charged towards Jia Yan, who was 1 kilometer away. At the same time, his entire body seemed to have merged into the air, becoming a little unreal. Although it does not look like a subspace ability, there is a hint of subspace talent in it, and he has used this ability to the limit, making it ingenious and clever compared to Jia Yan's relatively simple subspace ability. Much more. It's just that during the process of his charge to 1 kilometer away, there were many members of Jia Yan's troops on the road. Although they had no intention of blocking the Domain Lord, the Domain Lord still didn't mind killing Jia Yan. When they hit the rocks, they should kill these soldiers conveniently, otherwise the combat effectiveness of Jia Yan's soldiers would probably increase the casualties of their other troops. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2296. Poof. During the series of killings, his speed slowed down a bit. You guys, come here quickly. Outside the subspace, Jia Yan forced his injuries to improve, and his blue defense was dazzling and dazzling. He shouted coldly to the mid-level Zinc subordinates who had already arrived at Jia Yan's side but were wavering. That's right, these mid-level galactic experts are Jia Yan's subordinates, and they are also the teammates he has been training in the past few days. This is also the only way Jia Yan thinks he can fight against a Domain Lord at the moment. If they don't come over, then Jia Yan will feel that the mud can't support the wall, so he will retreat directly into the subspace and have a long-distance escape. Presumably because of his status in the minds of several senior Domain Lords, he will not be able to escape this time. There would be too many questions. Yes, he came here from subspace to join forces. If his subordinates are unwilling to join forces, then he will escape. This. Several subordinates of Jia Yan's troops who were above the middle level of Xing who had gathered together looked at each other in confusion. They followed Jia Yan's orders during the war and gathered here. They didn't know the purpose of coming, but they came to join forces with Jia Yan. They also thought that Jia Yan must have called them over to explain something. But they never expected that when Jia Yan called them to come, he actually asked to join forces with Jia Yan. Do they dare to do this? Don't dare. I really don't dare. That was a Domain Lord. Even though Jia Yan himself had just escaped the pursuit of the Territory Lord, the price for him was definitely not small. He had an injury on his body and his color changed. Even Jia Yan, who is recognized as a powerful combat-type mid-level star of the galaxy, cannot sustain for long under the attack of the Domain Lord. They are not even the top of the mid-level star of the galaxy, let alone combat type. If they go up, they will not be killed in one blow. The rhythm of a group. So they are afraid. Jia Yan's joint tactics are powerful, but they have been practicing for so long and have never used them in actual combat. God knows whether there will be coordination when dealing with the enemy, and whether the Yin and Yang Dao's joint tactics will be effective against the galaxy level. Presence works too. Not to mention, they have to deal with the Territory Lord at the beginning. That is a powerful god, like a god that is beyond the reach of ordinary galaxy-level beings like them. Us. Lord Jia Yan. The three strong men above the middle level of the galaxy all had ugly expressions, especially the one at the top of the middle level of the galaxy. Jia Yan had treated him well before, and had also pointed out some points that this strong man needed to pay attention to at the top of the middle level of the galaxy. With this strong man, there was a slight breakthrough. Now Jia Yan is injured and asks them to join forces, but they dare not. Okay, if that's the case, I understand what you mean, so you don't have to stay in my Jia Yan army in the future. I'll leave first. Jia Yan spoke coldly. Originally, he was planning to get into the subspace since they didn't agree. But what he didn't expect was that before he finished speaking, a mid-level commander of the galaxy who he was not very close to on weekdays suddenly stood up. "Lord Jiayan, I am willing to join forces with you." This mid-level expert in the galaxy has worked extremely hard in previous training. Although he has never caught Jiayan's attention, he often said a lot about Jiayan in his conversations with him. Compliments. Of course, others were like this too. This strong man seemed to be more complimentary than others, so Jiayan didn't take it to heart. Unexpectedly, at this juncture, this middle-level powerhouse in the galaxy actually spoke out to support Jiayan. Oh! Jiayan was slightly startled, and the other two galaxy mid-level and above powerhouses were also stunned. "Lord Jiayan, I feel that we are indeed capable of fighting. Besides, we have been practicing for so long, and you have been talking about dealing with a domain lord level. I have simulated fighting with a powerful domain lord so many times in my heart. Although we didn't win every time, I think that since the adults let us practice, it must make sense, and we should at least have the capital to fight against a domain lord." The words of this mid-level warrior from the galaxy revealed his extreme confidence in Jiayan. Before such a critical situation, it was obvious who truly trusted Jiayan and who had certain doubts. Of course, it's not that others are bad, but Jiayan's performance did not give them confidence. In fact, Jiayan can't blame others. But at this juncture, if someone supports Jiayan, the situation is a little different. The other two galaxy intermediate and above teammates were silent at this time. One of them was a little swaying. After a slight hesitation, he also nodded. "Okay, sir, I believe you too. Your strength is enough to contend with that domain lord. If we join, it won't be much worse. I believe that sir will protect our lives at the critical moment of." As a result, there is only one person left who is the strongest among the three, who is also the person at the top of the middle level of the galaxy. His face turned ugly for a while. As if he didn't dare to look at Jiayan, he hesitated, looked at his two colleagues, and finally nodded as if he remembered Jiayan's advice to him. "Okay, I also agree to join forces. Sir, please try to save the lives of the three of us." This strong man at the top of the middle level of the galaxy was extremely uneasy at this time. After all, they really had no bottom against a territory lord level. "I will." "Okay, he is coming, quickly set up your starting formation." Jiayan smiled and then ordered to come. Yes. Three beings above the middle level of the galaxy suddenly surrounded Jiayan in the center of the team. With Jiayan as the center point, the three of them formed a triangular formation. In fact, in such a formation, Jiayan only served as a protective center and was responsible for commanding with his brains. Of course, when necessary, he would also use your own brainwave power to provide a certain amount of brainwave power to this team. When the three mid-level galactic warriors protected Jiayan at the center, Jiayan could feel the team's belief at this time. Yes, although he forced them to open their business in a somewhat coercive way, each of them has his own unique personality and his own reasons for working hard, so since they have all made this choice, then we'll do my best. Ideas are not something that only Jiayan possesses. He is not a computer artificial intelligence. There is a living life. Naturally, he will not have the slightest idea of only listening to Jiayan regardless of his own life. Very good, now listen to my orders. Do you see the insect creatures over there that are killing my Jiayan troops? Come on. Jiayan's eyes flashed with a trace of brilliance. At the same time, he used his yin and yang dao, creating a smoother feeling for the yin and yang dao of the other three people to join forces. After all, as a developer of yin-yang dao, Jiayan's yin-yang dao skills and level have long reached a level that others cannot imagine or even understand. Now that he finally has three powerful teammates joining forces with him, in this kind of life and death battle, there is no need for Jia Yan to hide much. Others can't say anything. If he, a dignified founder of Yin and Yang Dao, cannot use the strongest combat effectiveness against Yin and Yang Dao, then do you still want others to trust him? Impossible. Buzz. The three strong men above the middle level of the galaxy felt that their brainwave power had increased tremendously for a while. Although the total amount was contributed by every strong person, they were afraid of using it for this kind of thing. For example, if he wanted to fly quickly at the moment, Jia Yan had allocated his brainwave power and spit out his brainwave power into the way of flying in an instant, almost without any reservation. The amplified brainwave power was also used neatly. Boom. So once they started flying, the three mid-level and above-level experts in the galaxy suddenly felt that the air around them seemed to be ignited by themselves, breaking the sound barrier, and suddenly crashed into the raging territory lord. Huh? What? At this moment, the domain master creature was killing other members of Jia Yan's army. The soldiers of Jia Yan's army would perform amazingly when dealing with ordinary enemy troops, but when facing a domain lord creature, they felt extremely bad. The territory lord is the territory lord. How can an ordinary army retain a strong man like him? However, Jia Yan's troops did have their own belief in the army. Those mid-level warriors in the galaxy were hesitant to join forces with Jia Yan, but the other ordinary soldiers did not hesitate at all because of their previous victories. They have positioned themselves as elites, and their morale is extremely strong. Even if a domain lord comes, these soldiers will still have a steady stream of people going up to die. That's right, it's death. When Jia Yan rushed to those mid-level galaxy powerhouses and discussed joining forces, no less than 30 soldiers from Jia Yan's army died at the hands of this domain lord. And those who died were all semi-star teams. Together, they can create a certain stellar level one-sided power. Even if they cannot stop the territory lord, they really slow down the territory lord. Moreover, the giant insect territory lord seems to be observing these Jia Yan. The combat effectiveness and fighting style of the troops meant they were able to kill slowly and leisurely, so he did not arrive at Jia Yan's location in the first place. 10 half-star teams have died, and there is another star-level joint team coming up over there. When Jia Yan approached the domain lord, he felt that the loss of lives of his subordinates. The deaths of these troop members that Jia Yan would have never cared about made him feel slightly sad for no reason. A sudden. After all, the human heart is still full of flesh. Even though Jia Yan has never valued the so-called Jia Yan troops, in fact, he still values these soldiers more seriously from their love for him. Many. In this case, looking at the large swaths of soldiers in front of him, they died like grass in the hands of the domain lord. Even though the number of deaths was very small, Jia Yan still felt a little unbearable. Of course, he couldn't bear it anymore, but he didn't lose his mind because of the death of his subordinates. Boom. Are you here? After waiting for so long, it's finally here. The insect-like domain master seemed to have known for a long time what Jia Yan was planning. When a sudden and terrifying body wave came to his side, he slowly turned his head and looked at Jia Yan to join forces with him. The three major galaxy-level powerhouses. For the first time in their lives, the three galaxy-level beings were stared at by a hostile territory lord. In this way, how could the three of them not be afraid? Don't be afraid. The first one will use the attack moves. Follow-up changes will be guided by my brainwave power. Be sure to feel good and be prepared for changes anytime and anywhere. Jia Yan's voice was calm, giving his three subordinates great confidence. Jia Yan was also a little excited, but as the person leading this matter, he must not have too many emotional fluctuations, otherwise his subordinates would feel that their belief in them would change. Groan. When the three galaxy intermediate orders accepted Jia Yan's guidance and used 2 negative energy and 1 positive energy yin-yang dao to jointly plan, they rose into the sky and charged to the side of the territory lord. Fortunately, he turned his head in time and looked at the last ace of Jia Yan's troops who were coming from the four major forces. Master Jia Yan is here. It's Master Jia Yan and 3 adults. The strongest ace in our Jia Yan unit joins forces with the team to appear. Woo, we died so tragically. Lord Jia Yan, you must avenge your brothers. Their death will not be in vain. Even if Lord Jia Yan and the others cannot defeat a territory lord, they will definitely be able to hold it off for a while. Yes, after delaying it, we can persist until the end of the battle between the domain lords on the main battlefield. When a domain lord has free time, we can eliminate the enemy domain lord. A group of soldiers from Jia Yan's army surrounded the edge of the battlefield. They rushed forward one after another to deal with the domain lord. Although the overall casualties were not too large, the soldiers who died were all half-astral level. In Jia Yan's army, they are considered to be mid-level and high-level. So many people died, and everyone felt as if a rabbit had died and a fox had died. Fortunately, their top commander, Jia Yan, did not disappoint everyone and finally led the team to come for support. They were almost moved to tears. Master Jia Yan did not abandon them. Jia Yan, you weren't seriously injured. It really surprises me. This time I came to accept the request for support and met such a fun mid-level star like you. The big insect domain master looked extremely excited, especially when he saw Jia Yan's body blooming with azure light. His whole expression was surprised and a little curious. The thread he used to pierce Jia Yan just now was one of his methods, and it also contained poison. After one blow, the average strong man could not withstand it, but he did not expect that this big mosquito could withstand his silk thread, and even the poison had no effect on Jia Yan. How could a being who was one level lower than him be able to do this, not make him curious and want to find out?